Chapter 301, Dancing with Crouch News. After emptying the venue, Professor Dumbledore transformed a high stage by the wall with a set of drums, several guitars, a lute, poetry, a cello and several organs. "It's a strange instrument configuration," Hermione whispered. "As a piano learner, some basic music knowledge is understood, so it's normal to see something wrong after seeing the instrument on stage. Maybe the wizard's popular things and playing methods are a little different from ours. After all, the two worlds have been separated for hundreds of years," Ryan said. At this time, she saw two 80s dress-up witches walked with instruments. A stand. At this time the audience burst into thunderous applause. The two musicians picked up their instruments in applause. The lanterns on the table were extinguished, and the 6 warriors including Ryan and their dancers stood up. The Weird Sisters played a slow, sad song. Ryan took Hermione into the brightly danced dance floor and started the first dance gracefully. He took Hermione's waist and slowly rotated on the dance floor. "You used that bottle of perfume." When Ryan was close to Hermione, she finally smelled that the perfume on Ryan's body was sent by her in the morning, which made Hermione a surprise. After all, she knew that Ryan had never used perfume before. "Of course, the pine and cypress taste suits me very well, thank you." After a short prelude, Dumbledore and Mrs. Maxim entered the dance floor together, and soon they jumped up the waltz. For Mrs. Maxim's block, this dance is absolutely elegant. Even Moody, who had a serious face, came to an end, but his prosthetic legs made him look awkward, so that his dance partner Professor Sinister had to stare nervously at his prosthetic legs. The most exaggerated is Filch, who is standing on the dance floor holding Mrs. Loris as if dancing. It's a pity that Cat didn't like this look. There was always a look on the face that Diamond wanted to hurt me. With the performance of the music, many people also entered the dance floor, and the warriors are no longer the center of attention. Ryan saw many acquaintances dancing on the side, and he looked very happy until the organ played the last trembling note. The band stopped playing, and the opening dance was successfully concluded. The applause broke out again in the auditorium. Next is free time. After 2 fast-paced dances, Ryan took Hermione out of the dance hall. It happened to see Ginny sitting alone at a table, fanning the wind with her hand. "What about Harry?" Hermione asked as the two approached the table. "He's going to get a drink," Ginny said as she sat down, while Ryan went to the table over there to get the butter beer. After bypassing a large group of happy dancers, Ryan just met Harry at the drink table, so the two men carried a few bottles of butter beer together to the rest. When they returned, they saw Ron sitting on the table whispering and quickly talking to Ginny. After seeing Ryan coming, Hermione stood up and took Ryan directly to the other side. "Ron is dealing with family issues, so we still don't want to mix it up," Hermione explained when the two were drinking butter beer. Fortunately, now looking far away, Ron just patted Harry on the shoulder. It should not be able to fight. Thinking of Ryan's tremendous happiness, Hermione was the only daughter. Mr. Crouch also came to dance with Mrs. Maxim at this time. As they passed the dance floor, they could see Mr. Crouch looking tired. It seems that his son should have run away, which gave him a lot of psychological pressure. Percy came to Hogwarts today under the leadership of Miss Burns. After seeing Ryan, Percy soon walked over with Penlow. "Congratulations on being a warrior at Hogwarts." Percy congratulated Ryan. "Fortunately, Miss Burns knew that my girlfriend was still in school, so she gave me the opportunity to be an entourage. Come again after graduation. It feels good to be in this castle." At this point he smiled at Penlow, and Penlow took out his handkerchief to wipe Percy's sweat off his temples. "Aren't you here to show me affection?" Ryan asked. "Of course not. I am just here to tell you that the Ministry of Magic in several countries has been quarreling for a long time because of the application of the law, so today Miss Burns will come to Hogwarts. Hope this news is useful to you." "Thank you so much." After thanking Percy, Ryan asked his own question. "Right, isn't it that Mr. Crouch is in the hospital? Why did he appear at the prom again today? I think he seems tired." "Looks like it can only be said that Mr. Crouch is too dedicated." Percy was right. "Although I have some disagreements with him, I admire his professionalism very much." Listening to colleagues said that this hospitalization made his body recover little, but the psychological pressure is still preventing him from recovering completely. "This may be too much pressure to hold 2 large-scale international events in succession. My father told me that Crouch was drinking a bottle of invigorating medicine today." Street Munger came to Hogwarts. "It is estimated that he will have to go back to the hospital after the ball." "It sounds too bad," Hermione said to the side. "Yeah, Ludo Bagman is indeed a good player and a lovable person, but he is a mess in management. For example, Poser Jorkins, who disappeared in the summer of their department, has not let him it. It's been 4 months since people went to find it." So when there is such an event organizer, the Ministry of Magic can only rely on Mr. Crouch to support the current situation. The psychological pressure in this case is a very normal situation. After a few words, Percy took his girlfriend Penlow to the dance floor again. Unlike the two who broke up in the original book, Percy has maintained contact with his girlfriend after his fate changed. For couples of this kind who are in a long-distance relationship, it is natural to have a chance to meet and have to play together for a while. At this time, the Weird Sisters played their famous music, To be honest, www.mtlnovel.com is very disco style. The atmosphere in the venue was completely ignited, and the rhythmic rhythm lit this ancient castle. The little wizards happily twisted their bodies with the rhythm. It seems a bit noisy. Let's go for a walk, Lane whispered to Hermione. So the two quietly slipped out of the door and came to the hall. The front door was open, and the fairy lights in the rose garden flickered as they stepped down the steps. They found low bushes, ornate winding paths and huge stone statues all around. Lion could hear the splashing water splashing, like a fountain, and occasionally saw people sitting on the carved bench. Much better. It was really a little bit uncomfortable with that atmosphere just now. Hermione patted her chest lightly and said that at this time the two people walked through a rose bush with a winding path. I don't understand why such a fuss, Igor. A voice suddenly came from the other end of the bush. Severus, you can't pretend that nothing happened. Kakarot's voice sounded horrified and hoarse, as if afraid of being heard. It has become more and more obvious in the past few months. I am very worried now, and I cannot deny. Then run away, Snape's voice said impatiently. Run away, I will excuse you, but I want to stay at Hogwarts. Snape and Kakarot turned a corner. Snape held the wand in his hand and blasted the rose bush to both sides. He has a straight face, and his expression is ugly. There were screams in many flowers, and several dark figures jumped out of it. Ravenclaw deducted 10 points. Force it, Snape said fiercely. A girl ran past him. Hufflepuff also deducted 10 points. Stebbins. Another boy chased the girl went away. Chapter 302, End of the Ball. Looking at the backs of several little wizards who were struggling to escape, Kakarot looked a little panicked. He reached out nervously to touch his goatee, and then wrapped his beard around his fingers. It seems that this is not a good place to talk. Snape glanced around the trail, and there was no one on the trail. He turned sharply and walked away with a long stride, long black robe fluttering behind him. Kukla followed Snape and hurried away. When the figures of the two disappeared from the trail, a large sculpture made a soft landing sound. It turned out that after hearing Snape's voice, he didn't want to touch the two standing Ryan and Hermione directly and sensitively climbed behind the sculpture and hid. I think we can all go to Parker now, Hermione said to smooth the folds on her skirt. Oh, why is Kakarot so worried? As far as I know, Kakarot and Snape were both Death Eaters before, and they have magic marks on the mysterious people. Over the past few months, it has become more and more obvious. God. Hermione suddenly exclaimed something like this. We have seen that person in the first grade, and sometimes there should be a visit. Now at least we have Professor Dumbledore in front of us, and we don't need us to worry too much at the moment. Lane comforted. The topic of Death Eaters was indeed unpleasant. In silence, they came to a large stone-carved reindeer. They crossed the deer and saw a tall fountain splashing and gleaming. Two ambiguous figures sitting on a stone bench, looking at the spring water under the moonlight. Then Ryan heard Hagrid talking. As soon as I saw you, I understood, he said in a very strange hoarse voice. What do you understand, Hagrid? Mrs. Maxim asked, a low-pitched voice in her low voice. Hagrid suddenly remembered Ryan's conversation with him in front of the library, so he reversed the topic stiffly. I think you are a bit lonely like me. After all, our appearance is different from most people. Yeah, this sense of loneliness, even when I became the principal, I can still feel. Apparently Hagrid's words met the soft spot in Mrs. Maxim's heart like a stroke of magic, and resonated with her. Mrs. Mew also began to recall her previous days. Hagrid didn't mess things up. Ryan heard her smile and pulled Hermione away. At this time, Hermione's mood had recovered from the surprise after hearing Snape's conversation there, and soon she walked backwards naughtily on the path, and smiled lightly at Ryan. After leaving Hagrid for a distance, she hummed in a low voice, Lavender, open everywhere. This singing voice permeated the rose trail like the starlight tonight. Hermione looked a little shy when she sang. She squinted as if she wasn't looking at Ryan. Lane smiled. He felt Hermione was really cute at this time. I am the king, you are the queen. Ryan also sang along. This is an English folk song. His mother taught him this when he was very young. The song is not long, and it will soon end. Hermione stood there silently with her hands behind her back. The whole person looked so charming under the soft moonlight. Toss a coin, make a wish. Hermione and Lane both whispered in their mouths, and the voice grew louder. The two people stared at each other with wide eyes, as if they were going to carve each other's touch with their eyes. Throw a coin and make a wish. Lane approached Hermione gently and hugged her gently. Hermione raised her head subconsciously, and her soft lips just brushed over Ryan's lips. Ah, Hermione exclaimed in a low voice, and then shyly buried her head in Ryan's arms. She felt like she was burning up at this time. The two of them stood under the moonlight for a long time, and they didn't separate until a cold wind blew out to chill to make them beat. Let's go back, it's still a bit cold here. Hermione stood up straight again and took care of the slightly wrinkled dress gown before returning to the hall with Ryan. At midnight, the band stopped playing, and the last time everyone gave them a warm applause, and then began to walk towards the hall. Many people hope that the prom can be extended for some time, which is the happiest night since they entered school. On the second day of Christmas, everyone got up very late. People talked one after another and were interrupted by yawns from time to time. Hermione's hair became messy again, and she sprayed a lot of smooth hair on her hair for the party. But doing this every day is too much trouble and time for her. Unfortunately, that physical strengthening does not include hair. Hermione came over and whispered to Ryan at breakfast. Ryan heard a deep regret from his words. Sure enough, even the girl who usually concentrates on her studies has always paid attention to her appearance. There was a cooing sound on the ceiling, and daily newspapers were delivered on time. The first time Ryan saw the newspaper, he choked the milk in his mouth out of his nose. What happened? Hermione asked in surprise after watching Ryan's gaffe and handing over a toilet paper. Ryan handed over the newspaper directly, and saw that the second edition of the newspaper had huge letters written Harry Potter and his lover are back to old, and the lover's sister sent a blessing. Below is also a picture of Harry hugging Ron last night, and Ginny looked at them with a happy face on the edge of the picture. Gosh, www.mplnovel.com. I need to write a letter to tell my mother the truth. Lane heard Ginny exclaiming on the other side of the table. It's clear that Ron and Harry are back in their old ways, and they were described as this by the woman. It's okay, don't you see that most people in school don't believe this woman talking nonsense? Then Harry's voice came. But seriously, how did he take this picture? Obviously Professor Dumbledore has banned him from entering the school. The magical world of paparazzi that can be turned into beetles is really unpredictable. It seems that in the future, when you want to do something that needs to avoid people, you must use a few magic to investigate. The Christmas holiday gave Ryan a long period of time to master various abilities and make certain equipment. At this time, Hermione would always sit quietly and read a book, and sometimes help Ryan complete some experiments. The facilities in the request room are very complete. Ryan used the equipment here to replace most of the metal equipment on his body with Valeria steel during the holiday. At the same time, he worked with Hermione to make many potions. The part that was consumed after going to the world of Song of Ice and Fire before. The only thing he regrets is that Valeria steel is a single character magic metal. At most, it can be used to release flame or light-related magic. Ryan's plan to build a metal one that he could use for melee seems to be stranded. I can only hope that the next world can get some metals with better magic properties, Ryan thought with regret. Chapter 303, Full Moon Ceremony. While spending a week or so on Christmas holidays, Ryan received an invitation from Aunt Betty in the Emerald Dream. The letter invited Ryan and Hermione to go to the village of Marin the next night as guests of her son's tree planting ceremony. The ceremony held at this time means that we are going out when we want a curfew, she exclaimed when Ryan told Hermione the news. Of course, as far as I know, this ceremony of the Marin is to be held in the early hours of the day, which means that we will definitely not be able to come back before the curfew. If you don't want to go, I can go alone, it is no problem. Who said I didn't want to go? It is an honor to go to such a ceremony that is not even recorded in the book, Hermione said excitedly. Furthermore, it's Christmas holiday now, and it's not too big to come back late. What are you looking at me for with this look? This is the first time I saw our Miss Granger willing to violate certain school rules, so I was a little surprised. Lane replied seriously. At 9 o'clock the next night, the two of them quietly slipped out of the castle gate. Then, under Wolf's guidance, he went straight to the village of Marin. Under the moonlight, the snow in the forest reflected the silver-white light, clearly showing everything around it. The village of Marin is no exception. The river on the edge of the village has been frozen and covered with a layer of snow. The houses in the village are also covered with snow. The tall wooden houses seem to be piled with a thick layer of cream. Follow Wolf through the quiet village to the left of the village Aunt Betty's home, where she has been waiting for Ryan. There is a frame with a lot of fur on the side of her horse, and the child is inside. The horseman's child is much smaller than the foal, and it looks more like a horse-like human baby with a lower body. Aunt Betty's husband, Bane, was seriously teasing his son with a string of golden leaves and vines. At this time, Bane looked much cleaner than when he saw him in first grade, and his hair was neatly groomed. Because it was winter, he was still wearing a cape made of a whole bear skin. Welcome, welcome. After seeing Ryan and Hermione, Aunt Betty greeted them happily. Welcome to come to participate in our son's full moon planting ceremony. This time, you can first go to the fire in the village center to roast the fire. Aunt Betty opened the gift that Ryan gave her, and then made a surprised voice. These arrows are much better than most of our arrows. Only the top arrows that are usually stored in the altar can overcome them. This is really thank you so much. We really like this gift. The arrows are not only made of Valeria steel. Ryan also consumes a lot of materials to give these arrows a variety of very practical magical attributes. As long as you pinch these arrows, you can feel the power contained above. Bane next to him expressed his love for this gift more obviously after taking these arrows. He directly tied an arrow with rattan and pressed it under the pile of animal skins in the basket, and then put himself. Child was put back in the basket. If the horse people have a male newborn, then his parents will put the weapon they think is the best under the rattan frame of the newborn, to wish him a good warrior in the future. Wolf whispered on the side what Bane was doing now. By this time, Ryan had already sat on the very warm stones roasted by the campfire. Everyone was holding a teacup with some specialty medicinal tea from the forest. Wolf lay beside them, with a wide-mouthed cup containing the same herbal tea in front of him. You can try it, but this is a good thing that only exists on important days, and the horses are usually reluctant to take it out. After talking about Wolf, he put his long plush mouth into the cup and started. Drink it up. Lian also took a sip when he saw it. The tea contained a clear bitter taste in his mouth, but when it reached the base of the tongue, it became a kind of sweet. Afterwards, it was like a warm stream flowing directly down the esophagus into the stomach, warming the whole person. It dispelled the cold that penetrated into the body after running for about an hour in the snow. The horse people are worthy of nature's darling. After the elves leave the material world, it is estimated that only the horse people can have such a powerful talent in herbal medicine. After observing for a while, Ryan saw more details. For example, the old horseman sitting next to this bonfire occasionally adds branches and leaves to the bonfire, but it is these magical powers that contain very little. Even the human wizards are not considered as herbs at all. The bonfire was ordered to emit a slight white smoke. The smoke is fragrant with plants and trees. Everyone who smells can feel that the fatigue on the body is slightly relieved. After discovering that Ryan looked at her, the old man smiled friendlily at Ryan. Child, you are the friend of nature of mankind. Thank you for your help this time, otherwise Betty will not fulfill her wish for many years. I just realized the part of nature is small by chance, Ryan said modestly, and then he asked, what do you call it? Lanny. Our horsemen are not as complicated as humans, just call me Lanny. I am the witch doctor of this horseman tribe and the grandmother of Bane. I grew up watching them grow up. After Betty was cursed before, I have been looking for a solution to the problem, but unfortunately it has not been successful. Fortunately, your help fulfilled their feelings. So, you can come to me after you enter the Emerald Dream. I am willing to share some knowledge about nature and potions with you. Ma people are very straightforward. You reads www.uukanzu.com, so they don't say some polite words like humans do. For example, the witch doctor of the Marin tribe in front of him clearly told Ryan that she was willing to use her knowledge as a gift to thank Ryan before helping her descendants continue the blood. That's too grateful. Ryan gave a heartfelt thanks to this generous old man. But Lanny witch doctor didn't think it was important. After all, in the Marin tribe, knowledge is exchanged openly. It is not like a human wizard who cherishes himself and sets numerous barriers to the exchange of knowledge. After Ryan had been chatting with the elder for a long time, her rich experience made Ryan and Hermione gain a lot, and Lanny is also very happy that her juniors are willing to listen to her story when she was young. After all, the Marin tribe is so big. After she explained her story many times, everyone in the tribe knew her well. For example, as soon as she talked about Wolf, she took her teacup and went to the other side of the campfire. After seeing it, Lanny witch doctor just shook her head, and then told Ryan Wolf in a chat that she would tell Wolf a story when he was still a wolf. It is estimated that he now looks like the same story. Some are scared. Time passed quickly in the chat, and suddenly a low horn sound echoed throughout the village. Lanny witch doctor stood up. The difference between the horseman and the horse is that the horseman often rests on his four-legged feet, and shakes his tail to sweep away the dust from the body, and said to Ryan and Hermione, Betty's full moon, the tree planting ceremony is about to begin, and we need to hurry to the altar right now. Chapter 304, Closing Off. The starlight shone on the entire village of Manma, making everything in the village seem to be shrouded in a hazy mist. There was only a little bit of fire on the main road, which was the way that the men and women held the torch to illuminate the altar. Following the flow of people to the altar, the baby was wrapped in a swaddle and placed on a wooden table in front of the altar. Betty and Bane stand on either side of the table as their children's parents. Of course, when the people were almost there, the baby's parents began to kneel down to the front legs of the altar to pray silently, and all the horsemen in the open space waited silently, only to hear the slight breeze of the breeze blowing through the surrounding branches. Even people like Ryan and Hermione who don't understand horse rituals are shocked by this sacred feeling, standing there motionlessly and quietly. Finally, after 10 minutes, the pattern on the arch as the altar began to emit emerald green light spots like fireflies. Afterwards, these light spots converged on a bare branch on the table behind the arch. After absorbing these green light spots, the branch grew tender green buds visible to the naked eye. Lion heard Hermione on the side breathing in an incredible breath. In all the books she had read before, the horse people were good at astrology and divination, but they never mentioned that the horse people know other magic. Betty took a step forward at this time and picked up the branch, then used the branch to soak in the water in the wooden cup on the table and sprinkled a few drops of water on the baby's forehead and read, "May the power of nature protect you, my child." The water droplets quickly evaporated, but Ryan felt that the natural forces in the water droplets entered the child's body. This power can improve the child's vitality and help him through the most vulnerable infancy. After blessing his children, Betty and Bane held the branch through the arch to the forest behind the arch. This woodland is different from other places. When other places are covered with thick snow, this small woodland is full of spring-like vitality. Betty and Bane quickly selected a small piece of open space to plant the branches in their hands. After the branches were planted, they poured the glass of water they had just poured into the small pit after planting the tree. The watered branches grew again in a green light, and finally stopped until they were about the same height as Ryan. "Thank you very much for coming to the tree planting ceremony of our newborn foal and wishing to be with us naturally." Aunt Betty said goodbye to her baby. At this time, Ryan also left after Wolf led them after coming forward and chatting with them. Horses actually release magic, but why the Ministry of Magic and the most wizards never knew this? Hermione asked Ryan on the way back. She felt a little weird about everything she saw today. Traditional wizards always treat themselves as superiors. For example, they look down on people who are not magic, and they also look down on non-human intelligent creatures. Under this arrogant mentality, they degrade or even ignore the power of other creatures. It's natural. For example, in the British Ministry of Magic, if someone is placed in the Horseman's office, it means that his representative is not far from being fired. How do you think the wizards can really understand other intelligent creatures in this situation? What about arrogance? After excluding other creatures, they are graded in the wizard. Why do some people always like to show their superiority by depreciating others? Hermione expressed her emotion. Because they can show their nobility only by belittling others. Those pureblood wizards have actually been married to moles. Otherwise, a series of problems caused by the marriage of close relatives have long since passed away. However, most of the so-called pureblood are not. Ken admits it. The evidence is that there are very few wizards who still have the magic power of the bloodline today. In this situation, they can advertise their nobleness without using some out-of-the-board outreach. It was early in the morning when he returned to the edge of the Forbidden Forest. The lights in Hagrid's hut had long gone out, and even the horses in the stable were asleep. Fortunately, this time is a holiday, and the inspections by the professors are not strict. Ryan and the two of them easily returned to the common room. "Good night, good dreams." After saying good night, Ryan went directly to the dormitory and went to bed. The next morning, he slept until lunch. Thanks to the Christmas holiday now, no one found anything wrong. After the end of the Christmas holiday, the second game day on February 24th seemed to be much closer. According to the information disclosed by Percy, this time it is likely that some fighting will take place, because only when the magic is used on people will some legal issues be involved, and the certification of certain magics in different places is different. For example, in some parts of Northern Europe, the Ministry of Magic delineates black magic far less than the British Ministry of Magic. But Ryan is not nervous about this. To say the actual combat experience, he feels that other contestants may not add up to his experience. Even the Dean Strand student who has the most combat experience, it is estimated that there will not be the combat experience of Ryan killed in the blood of the Corpse Mountain. The site is still covered with thick snow. Fortunately, the Hogwarts greenhouse adjusted the indoor temperature to a high level to ensure the growth of magical plants from warm places. This also made fine water droplets condense on the windows of the greenhouse. Through the window, everyone could only see a white piece, and could not see the scene on the ground at all. This kind of weather outdoor course is very bad, but I don't know if it is because Hagrid's recent love scene is very good. www.mplnovel.com. He didn't let everyone continue to breed snails in the classroom, but got only extremely rare Ginfaxia introduced to everyone. No one conceals the love for this kind of bird flying at high speed in a giant ring cage, especially those Quidditch lovers. As we all know, golden thieves are substitutes made to protect these birds when they are on the verge of extinction. Maybe a little tired to fly, the bird stopped on the bar in the cage. Its long, rounded shape has an elongated mouth, golden feathers, and ruby-like eyes that make this bird look like a beautifully crafted piece of jewelry. "Oh, it's so beautiful." Lavender Brown said. "How did Hagrid get it?" "It is said that golden thieves are now very rare, only in some protected areas. This needs to be thanked to the generous help of Headmaster Bushbarton." Hagrid's loud voice came over. "It allows us to see this very rare bird with your own eyes. You look at its feathers." In the past, many potions were made. These are the reasons for the rapid decline in the number of indiscriminate killings. Fortunately, everyone has found a replacement today. Products, and began to understand their protection. Students are now looking at this beautiful bird in the cage. From Hagrid's lecture, he can hear that he knows this little cutie no less than those monsters. At the end of class, every student showed satisfaction with the class. In particular, many girls hope Hagrid can maintain this state, because those sticky fried snails are so disgusting. Chapter 305, Rest Time. Olim told me that her students might want to listen to Hogwarts Magical Creature Protection class. I think the French don't expect to appreciate those overly strong animals, so I prepared some pretty little guys for them. Because there was no class next, at the invitation of Hagrid, Ryan and Hermione stayed in Hagrid's hut for tea. Of course, Ryan carefully checked the surroundings with magic to make sure that the pesky beetle wouldn't overhear. "Thank you for your warning. I have heard from many people that Orem has been very stressed all these years. Some things are really wrong to say." Hagrid put the black tea in the teapot into the cup in front of Lane. "Orem, have you and Mrs. Maxim started calling each other by name yet? It seems that your relationship is progressing very quickly," Ryan said after taking a sip of tea. "I think I need to change my teaching plan. Mrs. Maxim thinks my course content is at least not very popular with girls." "Hermione, what do you think?" Hagrid was embarrassed in the face of Ryan's joke has distracted the subject, If he is not full of beard, it is estimated that the entire face will be red now. Yes, I think you can add some animals that most people like to those animals that are more popular with you, so the teaching effect should be better. Hermione gave her advice at his discretion. The days when I saw fried snails in every class were terrible for most people. Okay, I think you might be right. Hagrid, after being in love, is not as stubborn as in the past. In the following time, he and Ryan even discussed what they learned in the second half of the semester. Animals are more suitable. I really hope that Hagrid can maintain this state, Hermione said on the way back to the castle. Then it depends on how long this love can last this time. Lane also silently prayed that Hagrid's love journey would go well. He also lacked interest in those lobsters that looked like molted lobsters but could not be wrapped in oil and fried to golden greedy crying neighbors' children. The days after will be as usual until the arrival of Hogsmeade Day in mid-January. I think you should have a rest too. Hermione watched Ryan swinging his wand in the request room. An electric shock knocked over the two wooden men in front of him, and then turned to the left. The wooden man said after finishing the practice, "Having been immersed in practice may not necessarily improve your level quickly." "You are right." Ryan put away the sword and put it in a space bag. "Wait for me to tidy up and go shopping in Hogsmeade." 10 minutes later, Ryan and Hermione were already on their way to Hogsmeade. "What is the medicine you are brewing recently?" Ryan has been making some kind of potion in the toilet of Myrtle, who has been crying for a while. But even if Hermione has read so many books, it is not clear that this potion is what. Even she can only see that the potion is a silver blue liquid, so this time she simply asked the question in her heart. "This is a horseman's potion. Using unicorn's blood as a raw material can quickly save lives." Aunt Betty gave birth to a maternal unicorn who had a difficult birth a while ago, and was lucky enough to get a part of the unicorn gift of cursed blood. She gave me half of it and gave it to me. I happened to use these things to experiment with the prescription I just got from Witch Dr. Lenny. Because there were some other people on the road, Ryan approached Hermione, said in her ear, "When will this medicine be done?" "How is the effect?" Hermione asked concerned. "It must be finished before the second game." Ryan calculated the days and said, "This is actually a product that is easily absorbed by the body and contains a lot of light and vitality. It has a magical effect on expelling the darkness of the body." Percy didn't tell us at the ball that the top three are now discussing the application of the law, and I am worried that Deemstrand's players might use some dark power magic. "Don't you know that kind of magic too?" "It stands to reason that you should master enough anti-curses," Hermione asked. "The magic that can control the mummy is definitely not a bright power." She firmly believes that Ryan also mastered the right equal strength. "Yeah, the potion is just a backhand. The potion will be much faster than the anti-curse when fighting. This will allow you to fight for a little more time. Maybe this time will determine the outcome of the battle." Ryan shrugged. "Of course, I just guessed the content of the next game based on the record of the game in history. It is a problem that this potion is not allowed to be brought on the court, but it is always good to prepare for such things in advance." Wandering on the streets of Hogsmeade, Lane kept watching everyone around him. Because Harry's competition and the Goblet of Fire were moved by hands and feet and directed at Voldemort's men and mixed with Hogwarts. After basically confirming that Moody was not transferred, Lane has been watching everyone in the school, trying to find out of the spy who mixed into the school. But today is still a fruitless day. After walking around the whole street, Hermione beside her started to rub her hands. Ryan immediately proposed to go to the Three Broom Taverns to get some warmth. British people like to socialize in taverns, and British wizards are no exception. The bistro was very crowded, and Ryan spent a lot of effort before squeezing to the bar and asked for 2 glasses of butterbeer heated with powder and maple sugar. Through the mirror behind the bar, Ryan saw Ludo Bagman's figure reflected in the mirror. He was sitting in a dark corner with a group of goblins. Bagman was lowering his voice and saying something to the goblins quickly. The goblins all crossed their arms in a menacing look. It seems that Ludo had a lot of gambling debt owed at the Quidditch World Cup last time. After discovering Ryan, Bagman quickly left with the goblins. "But when I left, I just met Harry shopping with Ginny www.mtnovel.com. Soon Harry was pulled to the side and said something. Only Ginny looked a little angry standing across the road. To make matters worse, Ryan saw Rita Sky taking her photographer over there. "What are you looking at?" Hermione asked after taking a sip of butterbeer. "It's nothing." Ryan also took a sip of butterbeer, and it felt pretty good to drink this in winter. The Three Brooms Bar is not only a good place to drink, but also a concentration of gossip in the British magic world. For example, Ryan heard someone say that some people circled the Black Lake several times before the Ministry of Magic. In addition to this, there are many parents who are short. For example, Miss Rosmita recruited a very capable young man and heard that it was her distant relative. The lady said she would pass the tavern to him in the future. For example, Zoko's magic joke shop has had poor income in recent years, and because of his age and lack of energy, he is ready to transfer. Therefore, many foreigners have visited the store recently. Another example is that a witch in the village was locked out by the jealous wife because he occasionally went home too late with colleagues of the opposite sex. And the most popular news recently is related to the top 3 competitions, and the surrounding drinkers are impressed by Furong and Grum. Fortunately, As a town at the foot of Hogwarts Castle, they still support local students. For example, Miss Rosmita gave Ryan a free dish of French fries with a thick cheese sauce. At the end of Hogsmeade's journey back to the castle road, Ryan felt that his body and mind were relaxed. It seems that it feels good to take a break and relax occasionally. Chapter 306, Ready. Because I heard some people in the Hogsmeade Tavern said that they saw the Ministry of Magic around the Black Lake, so after going back, Ryan made some preparations for possible underwater activities, such as borrowing Professor McGonagall's channel to order some muck's grass is used to make underwater breathing medicaments. Professor McGonagall was happy to help the warriors of his college. With the help of the professor, Ryan only got the herbs he needed in a few days. If Ryan ordered it himself, he might not get it after the game. But even if everyone is inquiring, but the three schools still haven't got any news about the second game in such a long time. As the game time continued to approach, each contestant began to get anxious. When everyone was worried about facing the unknown game, something unexpected happened. In the spell lesson 5 days before the game, Ryan and Harry were called away from the class directly. After rushing to an office in the castle, Lane saw the three principals and Bagman were waiting here. "Children, I am very happy to see you again," Bagman said to all the participants with a happy face after seeing the people coming. "We originally planned to keep the content of the event until the start of the competition, but in view of the complexity of the second competition this year, for security reasons, I decided to inform you in advance of the content of the competition." "What is going on? Why was it so secretive before and suddenly changed my mind and gave up secrecy? And the preparation time for the whole week is a bit too long." "You should know that except for the two Hogwarts players who are younger, the players are all grown-ups. For them, if they know the content of the game in advance, they will definitely prepare for it in a targeted manner, so that Hogwarts' disadvantage is too great." But as Professor Dumbledore showed no dissatisfaction, Ryan did not raise any objections. Instead, they sit quietly on the stool like other players and intend to listen to what the content of the game is so that the organizer can be confident that the game is fair. "Well, at least it sounds fair to everyone." Bagman started to announce the content of the competition straightforwardly. "Well, in the first game, we test your courage, and in the second game you test your maintenance of school honor." Just as everyone was ashamed of the concept, Bagman explained the content of the game with a rapid speech rate. "There will only be one person who wins the championship and wins the trophy at the end, but the honor of the game is not only attributed to the winner, but also to the school where the winner is located. So the second competition calculation score is the average score of the two people in this school to reflect the school of honor." "What?" "No, in addition to the Hogwarts players, the other two school players issued opposing opinions. After all, because there is one more player, the players from the other two schools are indifferent to each other. In this case, it is difficult for them to share their scores." Bagman condensed his smile after hearing the opposition, and said seriously, "This is unanimously approved by all the principals and the head of the Ministry of Magic. If you refuse, even abstain." Everyone was quiet. Seeing the following, everyone shut up. Bagman continued, "So the 5 days from now until the game is the practice time left for you. From now on, to ensure that these projects are completed independently by you, you will live in a tent by the Forbidden Forest and can only move within the designated range. What you need can be sent to you by telling the staff. Finally, each player has a purchase quota of 50 gallons. These purchased items are allowed to be brought into the arena, so please arrange it properly." "Right." Mr. Crouch stood up when Bagman finished his speech. The director Bagman just missed a point. "I added that the venue for the next project will be in Black Lake and the Forbidden Forest, and it's related to the creatures there. I hope you can prepare well in advance." "Okay, if you have any questions, you can ask them now." "No wonder this time we are closing everyone down. After all, it is too easy for each school to find a response plan on the premise of knowing the location of the competition in advance. Keeping everyone in one place is also to minimize outside factors. There is an alchemist at Hogwarts. In this case, the same purchase amount is a little unfair to us." Furong first asked her question, and she looked like she was pointing at Ryan with an air, as if Ryan owed she has a lot of money. "No, it's fair," Crouch explained. "First of all, everyone has their own strengths, just like this Dracula player used his natural spell-like abilities in the first game. We can't prohibit it. Second, most of the contestants present it as an adult wizard, and only the Hogwarts contestants are far from adult. In this case, all the principals think that although this arrangement is somewhat inclined to be with Hogwarts students, it is still fair to normal competition." According to the three principals and several Ministry of Magic staff, escort, everyone went out from the main entrance of the castle, walked through the lawn, bypassed half of the Forbidden Forest, and then came to an open space. 3 tents have been set up on the open space at this time, and there is a golden circle on the outer circle of the open space. "Okay, you will live here for the next 5 days. Remember, you are not allowed to cross the circle, and outsiders are not allowed to enter this circle." Crouch said seriously, but Ryan was inexplicable. Thinks of the King Kong circle painted by Sun Wukong to Tang Seng in Journey to the West, and then thinks of the difference in magic between East and West, and then, Forget it, you can't think about it anymore. Now every second of preparation time is very important. Ryan's mentality calms his brain and then walks directly into the tent with the Hogwarts school badge. www.mtlnovel.com. Ryan, what is going on? As soon as he entered the tent, Harry asked anxiously, I'm almost fainted by the process of this game. What the Ministry of Magic thinks. I feel the mess of this game is messed up. What's going on? It must be that those people temporarily arranged the game to change the original project. Ryan took a deep breath on the sofa and responded. Harry showed a dazed expression. Isn't the Ministry of Magic prepared for a long time? How could this be changed directly? It shouldn't be. Why can't it be changed? Didn't you hear that Bagman just said that the content of the second game is to calculate the school's team points? When you first plan to organize the top 3 competitions, no one should think that there will be 6 players in this game. No group will divide this project. So I inferred that the competition was changed temporarily. So in this case, there are various troublesome problems that can be expected. But seriously, Ryan was very calm about the next game, which is likely to be a big fight. At least he thinks that the other 4 players will come to give their heads even if they are tied together. Lane seemed calm, but Harry was a little anxious. Not to mention that he successfully defeated the dragon in the first game, but he still thinks that he is by tricks in his heart, which is far from the level of Ryan who has just lost the dragon. So now he is very worried that the second team game will drag Ryan back. Ryan, what do you think I should do this week? Harry felt more uneasy the more he thought, so he asked directly. Chapter 307, Game 2. Ryan stared at Harry very seriously after hearing Harry's uneasy inquiry. When Harry felt disturbed, he opened his mouth and said, If you feel uneasy, I will practice with you a little bit this week. In fact, as long as you master a few basic spells you master that it, there's no need to be so nervous. By the way, if you believe me, you can give me your usage quota. I will do something during this time. I think at least it should be more affordable than buying the finished product directly. No problem. Kazakh nodded hard. All my quota is for you. Thank you for trusting me. After finishing, Lil got up and patted Harry on the shoulder, then said while walking towards the back studio, I assure you that the magic props we use are definitely stronger than the other 2. In the days after, Ryan first made 2 bottles of underwater breathing potions, because according to his inference, the first game was probably too late to change at that time. So they simply added a few dragons to complete the calculation. However, the organizer of the second game has much more preparation time than the first game. At this time, it is likely that they directly expanded the content of the game for the sake of the game. That is to say, mixing the original underwater rescue into this new competition as a part of the new competition can at least save a lot of things, and at the same time, it will not waste the original arrangement. In addition to preparing props, Ryan spent some time training Harry. The tents where the contestants live now should be specially approved by the Ministry of Magic. In addition to a daily 3-bedroom room, there is a laboratory and a magic practice room. The 2 are now practicing wrestling temporarily in the magic practice room. Why do the 2 of us use so much magic when practicing, except for the magic spell, which I already know? Harry asked curiously after the day of practice. For example, disarming spell, iron armor spell, smashing spell or something. You saw it when I was alchemy. To be fair, do you think you can learn in these 5 days? Ryan asked back after hearing Harry's complaint. It must be impossible to learn, Harry admitted quite simply. But what does this have to do with spells that have been practiced all day? Spells and alchemy are the same. It is not easy to master new things proficiently. In the ancient days of the ancient dynasty, there was a general who once said that he could play 1/3 of what he knew when he went to the battlefield. Very good. Half of them are excellent talents. He has never fought a person who can play 100% of his ability on the battlefield in his lifetime. Our game is also equivalent to the battlefield, as long as you can put those basic fighting spells can be used with proficiency to ensure that they can be used at critical moments. The spell of blindly seeking new powers is likely to reduce our level on the field. I get it. Harry stood up and walked to the corner of the practice room to start practicing the basic spells. It has to be said that Harry does have a talent for black magic defense. Ryan found that his ability to release spells in this area has improved visually every day. 5 days passed very quickly. All the contestants were quickly gathered again, and the 6 players were called into a tent by the forest to hear Crouch announce the game. Nice to see you again, ladies and gentlemen. Although he was very happy, Crouch's stiff face could not see the taste of happiness at all. In these 5 days, I believe everyone is ready to deal with the next game. After he finished, he glanced at the following people. You can see the school's game plan from everyone's dress. The players of Deemstrand and Booth Barton carry different things on each person, indicating that they have chosen to cooperate with each other in the game but fight each other. Only the 2 Hogwarts players were uniformly carrying a leather armband, and in addition to a small leather bag, there were a row of test tubes filled with various drugs. In addition, both men had a dagger tied to their thighs. The next bagman said with a smile, the game will start in half an hour, so let's talk about the specific content of this game first. that is, to save the hostages and collect gold medals. The first game of golden eggs each piece is made into 4 gold medals. You need to go to the Black Lake to get your own gold medal, and then combine the gold medal with a crystal in your hand. In this way, the gold medal will show the same other one after entering the Forbidden Forest. The other 3 gold medals made by Golden Egg are located at the exit. One of the gold medals is with your hostages. Participants need to take the hostages to the exit and end the game. Bagman wiped the sweat from his head after finishing the long string in one breath. Crouch looked at him with dissatisfaction and said, "There are some details that need to be added. First, everyone in Black Lake, you can only take your own gold medal, and you are not allowed to touch other people. Second, the gold medal in your hand will show the position of all gold medals within half an hour after entering the Forbidden Forest, but not including the gold medal in the lake. The position. At the same time, the gold medals that were taken away will also disappear from the display. Third, the players in the ban are allowed to obtain other players' gold medals, including searching and snatching. Finally, 2 hours after the first player enters the ban at the end of the game, all the players who did not take the hostages to the exit score are directly 0. Do you understand now? What if I only take the hostages to the exit? Diane, another Booth Barton player, asked. Then it is a pity that you will only have 1 hostage's basic points, and each hostage's basic point is equivalent to a gold medal. Please remember that as long as the game comes out within the specified time, it will count. Earn extra points for you. Can I attack the hostages? Crumb asked in a low voice. This is absolutely not allowed, no matter attacking hostages or hostages attacking others. The attacker and the attacker's corresponding player score will be cleared. www.mplnovel.com. You and the hostage will have monitoring magic. Don't try to make small moves. After seeing that no one had asked other questions, the 2 officials of the Ministry of Magic left. All the contestants sat there in a serious atmosphere until the bell rang after half an hour. After the competitors heard the bell, the fish pierced through the gate of the tent, and then walked along the lawn of the Forbidden Forest to the Black Lake. Ryan saw that the seats were now lined up on the opposite side of the lake during the firefighting competition in November last year, already full, and reflected in the lake below. This is the coldest morning of the severe winter. The trees are covered with frost flowers, as if the frost is seeping out. The sky is blue, like a bright mirror. The sun traverses in the past, bright and cold, and shines on the cold lake without any warmth. The referees sat at another table beside the water covered with golden tablecloths. The players walked directly in that direction. Dumbledore smiled and blinked at Ryan and Harry. Crouch sat indifferently behind the long table without looking at them. Miss Maxim smiled softly, as if nothing could ruin her good mood, and Kakarot only snarled and warmed around his baby student Grum. Ludo Bagman's voice suddenly resounded through the lake. This game is a large-scale water and water game. Their warriors have already played their roles. As soon as I whistle, the second project will start. Hostage. I counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. The sharp whistle echoed in the cold, still air. There was a burst of cheers and applause from the stands, and the game officially started. Chapter 308, Black Lake. When the whistle sounded, Ryan grabbed Harry, who was about to undress, and shook his head gently, then looked at the others. Participants in other schools seemed to have been prepared for a long time, each of them wearing a swimsuit under the wizard's robe. Now they all took off their coats in the cold wind and started to move, ready to launch. Within a few minutes, the people of other schools had already been launched. Only Ryan and Harry were standing by the lake in a coat. Why don't they take off their clothes now? Maybe they can appear at the bottom of the lake in an instant. Yes, I heard that Harry's figure is very good. Who have you seen? The last sentence was heard by Ryan. Suddenly there was a feeling of embarrassment, because he heard that the person who asked the question was male. Okay, it's time for us now. Ryan finished waving his wand a few times. Soon, a small blue frozen boat floated up from the water. The Hogwarts players chose an unprecedented method to try to pass the game. I don't know what their results are. Let us wait and see. Bagman's excited voice came from the referee table. After climbing onto the ship, Lane tapped the side of the ship with her wand. The boat rushed towards the center of the lake like an arrow off the string. You take this and listen carefully to the movements in the water, and tell me if there is any abnormal sound. Ryan pulled out a long flesh-colored string from the bag on his waist after he went to bed and stuffed his head into Harry. Put the other end into the water. What is this? Harry asked as he listened to the movement in the water as Ryan instructed. Telescopic ears. The newly invented products of the Weasley brothers and me will soon be added to their mail order list. Ryan explained. It's cool. Wait, I seem to hear a song. They were already a certain distance away from the shore at this time, and Harry suddenly heard the sound of singing underwater. It should be a mermaid. I think we found a place. Please point me in which direction? Ryan asked Harry with his wand at the stern, and Harry quickly pointed out that the sound was in the north-north direction towards the center of the lake. Lane waved his wand to adjust the direction of the ship. Harry only asked this time, how do you know where the mermaid is singing is where we are looking for? Black Lake is too big, so they will definitely put our things in the conspicuous place. As far as I know, the most conspicuous under the Black Lake is the village of Mermaid, and their singing can also guide everyone. Know that the bottom of the Black Lake is all mud and water plants, and the road signs placed are not easy to be seen. And for the wizard, the mermaid's singing guide is more magical. Soon, the ice ship was getting closer and closer to the place where the song sound came, and the lyrics began to become clear. To find the objects we took away, you need to move forward. Yes, this is the place, Harry said happily to Ryan, because now the singing of the mermaid has clearly indicated the destination. It was only about 10 minutes before they left the place of departure. At this time, soon the ice boat came to the top of the song. At this time, Ryan and the two of them took off their coats and drew a potion containing the sky blue liquid from the armed belt. As soon as the potion entered the stomach, Ryan felt that the mouth and nose began to have difficulty breathing, and at the same time, a gill grew under the ear. He endured the discomfort and said to Harry on the opposite side, I adjusted this underwater breathing potion, which is only valid for 20 minutes. Go down and grab the thing and immediately come up. Harry heard an okay gesture when he heard it, and then the two of them plunged directly into the water. Probably because of the medicine, they didn't think the water was as cold and bitter as when they touched it. The lake was dark and the visibility was so low that Ryan could only see things around 3 or 4 meters away. Follow me. Ryan used his wand to draw a few light dots in the water, and then struggled to swim towards the place where the song came. 5 or 6 minutes later, they saw many rough stone dwellings appearing on the bottom of the lake beneath their bodies, spotted with algae. There are faces in those dark windows. Some faces completely different from the legend. According to legend, the mermaid's half-length is very in line with human aesthetics. Unfortunately, this legend is only half correct. Only the mermaid in the Mediterranean region looks more beautiful, and because the civilization in ancient Europe originated from the Mediterranean coast, the legend of the mermaid spread everywhere. And now those guys at the bottom of the lake belong to the branch of the Atlantic mermaid. Their skin is iron gray, dark green hair is long and unkempt. Their eyes are yellow, their incomplete teeth are yellow, and pebbles on their necks are tied with thick ropes. It looks more like a murloc. The singing place is directly under iron, which looks like a small square. Around the square are the houses of the mermaid, and there is a huge, rough statue of the mermaid on the square. A group of mermaids gathered under the statue and sang Ryan the song they had just heard. Well, they are not the same as the murloc, at least this song is as beautiful as the legend. However, these fish people didn't expect anyone to rush straight down from the water above their heads. After seeing Ryan, the fish people's singing even appeared a little pause. Those singing fish people looked curiously above their heads, waited to swim to the square when Ryan discovered that there were 6 bags of water plants on the stone platform under the statue tied to the stone platform by the water rope. A slab-shaped rectangular gold medal was placed in each cage. As you approached, you could see that each gold medal had their signature on the golden egg. Going by boat from the water was faster than swimming. After counting the bags on the stone platform, Ryan came to a conclusion. Then Ryan and Harry quickly found their gold medals, and then drew out the dagger on their thighs and cut the bag to take out the gold medals. There is a groove above the gold medal. When Ryan inserted the crystal column into the groove, the surface of the gold medal immediately released a white light, and then the crystal and the gold medal merged into one. Upon seeing this, Harry also prepared his gold medal in the same way. After the gold medal arrived, Ryan made an upward gesture to Harry, and within a few minutes they returned to the water. At this time, it was found that there were still 5 or 6 minutes before the end of the medicinal effect. The two of them needed to soak in the water for the time being. In order not to delay the time, Ryan got a few handles on the bottom of the ice ship, and then the two people grabbed the handles and let the ice ship take them towards the Forbidden Forest near the Black Lake. www.mplnovel.com. Halfway through, the time to breathe the medicament is almost up. Ryan and Harry hurriedly jumped into the boat with both hands, and then under the command of Ryan, the two men drank an orange potion in the waist for the first time. Within a few minutes, there was a trace of steam coming out of the two of them, and the chill in their bones was swept away. Great, so you don't have to change clothes in a small boat. Harry gave Ryan a thumbs up after feeling the warmth on his body. How can you think of preparing this potion? Ryan looked at Harry with a stupid look. It's said that this game is in the lake, so launching is a high probability event. When the cold water temperature comes up from the water in mid-February, find something to warm up. It must be necessary. I think so many players. I guess you can't think of it. Harry smirked and touched his head. You know that I was only accidentally brought into the game. Certainly not prepared enough by you. After listening to this sentence, Ryan shook his head helplessly. Chapter 309, Forbidden Forest Tour. Scotland in mid-February is not as cold as in winter, except for some snow in the distant mountains. The Forbidden Forest has become green because most of it is evergreen trees. After landing on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, Lane and the two of them changed their clothes directly under the cover of a large rock. Then he raised his wand and walked into the Forbidden Forest cautiously. The moment they just entered the tree from the shoal on the shore of the lake, the gold medals in the hands of two people simultaneously beeped and vibrated, which gave Ryan the illusion of holding a mobile phone to receive text messages. After raising the gold medal, they found that the two men showed 3 points on the gold medal, and also marked the scope of the game and the position of the exit. In this way, Let us synthesize and find each one from the near to the far. After finding the hostage in the fastest time, we will return to the exit. After all, we are the weakest group. It is better to have as few conflicts as possible with other contestants, Ryan said to Harry directly after looking at the gold medal. Harry nodded after listening, because this weakest group was his hind legs, so Ryan was proposing a plan to reduce fighting with others. When he raised his hands, he agreed. It took 7 or 8 minutes for the two people to walk to the place where the lake shore on the edge of the Forbidden Forest was not visible, but in fact they only walked a few hundred meters. However, at this time the woods have become denser and denser, and various plants have begun to appear under the trees, showing a vibrant forest ecological environment. The plants under the tree also greatly prevented Ryan from rushing, especially Harry. Before Harry came to the Forbidden Forest, he followed the path and had no experience of traveling in this primitive jungle. Fortunately, as the master of natural magic, Ryan is still very adaptable in this environment. Under his guidance, Harry stumbled to keep up with his footsteps. Half an hour later, when the gold medal sounded again, Ryan and Harry had already harvested 3 gold medals on the way to the 4th point. It seems that there are currently a maximum of 5 people entering the Forbidden Forest. Ryan glanced at the gold medals used as detectors and counted the number of gold medals displayed. It's transparent, but I don't know how long it will last. So we need to be as fast as possible to avoid encountering people from other schools. Fortunately, they saw a gold medal belonging to another person on their way to the 4th point, so they took away the gold medal belonging to Gustav, another player of Team Strand. At the 4th point Ryan they finally saw a hostage. Hermione was sitting quietly on a branch watching the sky boringly, and after seeing Ryan they easily greeted them. Good morning Ryan, Harry. I haven't seen you guys for days. How have you been during this time? Not bad, even we can directly order what we want to eat. I once even ate the very authentic Tancow-style cold skin and meat buns. Lane used his gold medal under the tree to shine with gold clicked on a circle of, and the circle quickly disappeared. Seeing the circle disappear, Hermione immediately jumped directly from a branch more than 4 meters high. Harry had already landed gracefully before he could exclaim, "It's cool." Harry gave a heartfelt praise. "Thank you." Hermione raised her eyebrows and turned to Ryan. "This circle is too small, and the ground is too dirty, so I just climbed on the tree and sat, so that I could see it more cleanly." Further away, on the way to the next point, Ryan finally figured out what is going on today. Hermione and they were called to the office by Professor Dumbledore early in the morning and told them they were hostages. Take them into the Forbidden Forest. In the Forbidden Forest, after walking a certain distance to reach a predetermined point, these hostages were placed in a circle drawn by the 3 principals one by one. There was magical power in these circles, and Hermione tried to find that she couldn't get out at all, so she could only stay inside and wait for them to be rescued by Ryan. Struggling to pull his feet out of a tree pit full of fallen leaves, Harry looked enviously at Ryan and Hermione, who were as sensitive as elves in the forest. After finding Hermione, the team's travel speed was accelerated again. Many times when he encountered difficult places, he would be dragged by Ryan and Hermione and saved him a lot of detours. Especially after traveling in the forest for more than half an hour, Harry's physical fitness has greatly declined. This kind of help will greatly benefit the whole team. For wizards, magic can indeed help in the process of rushing, but to use those magic still needs good physical fitness or other prerequisites to cooperate. For example, without enough practice, the light body curse can only cause people to wrestle non-stop, and in the messy environment of the Forbidden Forest, it is also easy to constantly hit certain obstacles. It doesn't appear in the right place. Not to mention that some magical principles of temporary physical enhancement are overdrawing the body, but only useful in the final sprint. Harry naturally also felt that he was the one who was behind when he was teaming up in the Forbidden Forest. He walked faster than his professional athlete in the Forbidden Forest for these 2 friends who are only in the library every day. The table shows that it is very puzzling, especially because Hermione's physique as a girl is better than him, which makes him somewhat unacceptable. But the facts are in front of him. In this case, his self-esteem supports him to keep his teeth clenched to keep up to avoid further embarrassment. Wait, I think we might need to fight someone else. www.mplnovel.com. Just after 3 people climbed a 2-story stone wall, Ryan suddenly stopped everyone, with his hands on the gold medal. A point belonging to others that was close to their 5th point suddenly disappeared. You mean someone will run over to ambush us? Harry quickly saw the reason why Ryan made everyone stop. If this person can see other people's gold medal positions, I guess he is very likely to do so. Ryan nodded. And we spent so long on the road, I think other people's gold medals can also show where we are at this time. Then what should we do? We should, after a little discussion, Ryan and their team changed shape and began to walk carefully to the next point. Is still a hostage at the next point. On a clearing in a forest, Ginny sat there with her legs on a stone. Harry hurried over after seeing Ginny, while Hermione waited by the forest. But Ginny opened her eyes suddenly after seeing him, and then shouted to Harry. Because of the distance, Harry could only see Ginny looking excited. and then pointed to the woodland on the other side of the open space. "There is an ambush." Harry finally realized that he was rolling on the ground with the speed of his running. "Just passed by with a red light that hit me." He cautiously raised his wand and aimed at the place where the magic came, but only saw the bush shook slightly there, and the attacker should have moved to the place. Chapter 310, Fighting. Harry is now in an extremely embarrassing state. Someone in the surrounding woods attacked him, but because the opponent is in the woods and he is on the open ground, he can only be beaten, but it is difficult to fight back when he cannot find his opponent. "Harry, I just saw Gustav Gamstrom near here." Ginny provided information about what she had just seen. "Thanks." Harry pulled out a test tube filled with yellow powder from his waist, and then smashed it firmly on the dagger tied to his thigh. An instant yellow-green smoke enveloped the entire open space. Harry took the opportunity to bend over in the direction he had hoped for and ran quickly. At this time, another red magic shot over the head. It seems that the attacker directly attacked the location where Harry was just after seeing the situation. Why hasn't Ryan solved the problem yet? Harry hid behind a tree and thought nervously that he had appeared as a decoy in the plan. And then Ryan, who was following him, got the attacker. But as if Ryan had just disappeared, where did he go now? Is there an emergency? Harry thought of clenching his wand here, and it seemed that this time had to be carried by himself. Harry guessed that there was nothing wrong with it, and Ryan did encounter a problem outside the plan at this time. Now it is not only Mr. Gustav who is Deemstrand who is about to attack near Ginny. Mr. Gustav was at most a praying mantis in this trap, with a cardinal hidden behind it. When Harry was attacked, Ryan had just prepared to follow the attack to kill the exposed attacker. But before that, because of the psychological shadow brought to him by the Rita Squirt beetle a while ago, he used his life magic to investigate the surrounding, and unexpectedly found that someone was hiding nearby. Nature's vision. Ryan launched a natural magic. A hoopoe bird flew overhead from where it might be hiding people. Surprisingly, at first glance Ryan didn't find a figure on the ground, so he manipulated the bird to stop on a branch on that place and began to cry for close observation. Finally, he found that there was something wrong with the light in that place, as if there was something transparent in the air. Ryan confirmed who was the guy hiding there by analyzing the approximate size of the thing, because neither of the two girls in France had such a big chunk, and the other Mr. Gustav was now working with Kazakhstan. Leave fighting. Lane's position could even clearly hear Gustav's movement in the woods. It seems that Grum is ready to ambush Ryan here, because the uniform equipment on both Ryan and Harry at the time of departure has already indicated that they will act together. So now Harry's decoy behavior can easily be seen by Grum. The only thing unclear is how he persuaded Gustav, who was like him, to cooperate with him. But it is estimated that all kinds of private transactions are indispensable. It's just that Grum, who is an ambush, didn't expect Ryan, a 4th grade student, to master rare natural magic in addition to a very good alchemy. So his ambush was spotted by Ryan, who had a home advantage. Fallen. After lurking not far from Grum, Lane suddenly cast a spell. This red light did not stun Grum after he hit him, as a blue light flashed. The red spell disappeared as if hitting a magic barrier. Fortunately, with Ryan's attack, Crum's phantom spell was also invalidated. Ryan pointedly saw Crum's wrist wearing a brass bracelet. This should be regarded as lifting a stone and hitting yourself in the foot. Ryan did not expect that he could actually see his work at this time. Crum waved his wand, a ball of yellow-green light came over, and Ryan hurried to hide behind the tree. He heard the sound of the light ball hitting the tree trunk, and when he turned out from behind the tree, he saw that the hit part had been completely carbonized. Acid ball. Ryan recognized this magic, a kind of magic that is considered to be black magic in the UK. Once hit, the effect is no different from being splashed with a bottle of sulfuric acid. It's a bit poisonous. Ryan thought of waving his wand and returning another coma spell, while making a gesture with his left hand. As soon as Crum escaped the coma spell, he felt a gust of wind coming straight to the hip before he could breathe. Fortunately, Quidditch practiced him all year round to save him. He fell forward to the right, and the afterglow in the corner of his eyes saw a tree root pulled up and pulled it directly up. If it is not his timely response, this will definitely make him lose his combat effectiveness directly. He still lost his advantage when he fell to the ground, and once again blocked a coma spell with a magic shield of brass bracelets. He successfully stood up and hid behind a tree. The shameless Hogwarts player. I really don't know why he would look at him. Crum also recognized who attacked him. At this time, he escaped from the ground with fear. A few roots on the tree found a place where there was no root, leaning against the trunk, and then summoned a water curtain to see the position of Ryan just by reflecting. Nobody? Crum started to feel a little nervous. Although many of the spells used by Ryan just now were popular, he also found that Ryan moved to the ground in the Forbidden Forest. Normal people know that the longer the opponent is familiar with the drag during the battle, the more disadvantageous it is, so Crum hopes to end the battle quickly. Suddenly a small voice came from above his head. Crum subconsciously raised his wand and looked up. I saw a thing swooping down directly. www.mtlnovel.com. A flame whip emerged from Crum's wand head and directly hit the slammed thing, but when the flame whip hit the thing I felt something was wrong. I felt the lightness in my hand. it didn't feel like hitting the human body. Oops. Crumb was too late to look back at this time. He felt a sharp pain in his neck, and then he knew nothing. With a bang, Crumb fell to the thick pile of leaves on the ground, revealing Ryan with his elbow in the back. It was Ryan just now. He moved the natural affinity effect to eliminate the sound of walking in the forest. While Crumb was hiding behind the tree with limited vision, he climbed onto the tree next to him, and then jumped along the branch to Crumb's hiding on this tree. After discovering that Crumb was looking away under the tree, Ryan first threw himself in a wizard robe wrapped in stone and threw it down to attract attention. Then he chose Crumb's visual blind spot to directly drop from the sky and hit his neck with his elbow. This physical attack is not part of the bracelet's defense, so it does not trigger the bracelet's defense. Ryan also successfully defeated Crumb. After removing the bracelet and filling Crumb with a coma, Ryan poured out the contents of the gold bag in his waist. It seems that Crumb's movement is very slow, with only 2 gold medals in his pocket. After receiving the gold medals in his bag, Ryan tied Crumb with a rope and threw it under the tree. Anyway, every contestant and hostage were released with a positioning spell before they set off, so I didn't worry about the danger of throwing it here. After thoroughly handling the current situation, Ryan touched the open space, and he worried that Harry might not be able to hold it. So at this time, I can't care to hide and quickly rush to the open space from the branch. Chapter 311, Victory in the Game. Look at you. Last time I sent the dragon away, I went down to the lake and into the forest again. I guess you just dried your body out of the lake and went to the forest. The dampness of the lake water stayed there. It's not a good thing in your body, so you need to quickly drink a little cold repellent potion, otherwise you will suffer after going back. After talking, Madame Pomfrey picked up a round glass bottle from the side table and opened corks. Ryan, they smelled hot from a distance. No, we took the cold repellent after we got out of the water. Ryan hurriedly refused, and handed the used empty bottle to Mrs. Pomfrey. Mrs. Pomfrey gave up her plans to give Ryan and Harry medicine after she heard it. Lane, seriously, you can think about becoming a therapist after graduation. At least I think you have some talent in configuring therapeutic medicaments. I might be better at alchemy, but maybe I can find a new treatment recipe in this direction. Lane responded to Madame Pomfrey. At this time Madame Pomfrey had already checked Ginny's wounds and was applying a green ointment to his ankle. That's right. Then I'll wait for your future treatment. Mrs. Frey applied the last ointment to Ginny's ankle, and then began to tell Ginny not to exercise violently for a few days. At the end of the 2-hour time limit, the other 2 school participants entered the treatment tent by opening the curtain. But they looked much worse than Ryan's team, and even a Bushbarton hostage was brought in by a stretcher like Ginny. This is a silver-haired girl who looks small. Looking at the open fractured wound on her left arm, she knew that she was much heavier than Ginny, but she comforted Furong strongly. Even Madame Pomfrey poured a pungent disinfectant potion on his wound. She could not bear to cry. Oh, Gabrielle, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have walked so fast in front of me. Although the little girl didn't cry, she looked at the bottle of red potion pouring on the wound, crying distressed. It's okay, sister. At least we got that gold medal. While talking about Gabrielle, he comforted her sister's blonde hair like an adult, exactly the same as Rose Crystal used to comfort Lane. After seeing this scene, Ryan couldn't help but raise his mouth slightly. After everyone has dealt with it, it is time to score again. Each gold medal and hostage are 6 points. On average, the Hogwarts team scored 42 points by itself, and Deemstrong's 2 brothers were scored because of the medal. Ryan ambushed them once, and it was not enough time to find other gold medals. More importantly, they were only able to find a hostage when the game was about to end. After discovering that there was not enough time and they had only Mr. Gustav's hostages, Crumb took the initiative to carry forward the spirit and gave all the gold medals found to Gustav so that all their gold medals would be counted. They averaged only 12 points per person. Ryan could see Kakarot watching them with a hostile look. Finally, the players of Boothbarton, they spent too much time fighting with a group of aquatic magical animals in the Black Lake. As a result, they did not find their own gold medals. Fortunately, after a fierce battle with Ryan, Crumb lost the gold medal where they could see all the gold medals. For safety's sake, they did not ambush Furong at each gold medal point. But in the end, the fatal blow at the exit was because the ambush point was too close to the exit, so Furong and they successfully rushed out. As a result, Furong kept all the gold medals they had won. 6 gold medals and 2 hostages made them each get 24 points. Awesome. After seeing the final score, Ryan and Harry gave each other a high five, because their scores are now higher than those of other school students. At the same time, there were cheers like mountains and tsunami in the stands. The third and final project will take place on the evening of June 24th. Bagman continued after the announcement of the score. Their warriors will be informed about the specific content of the project 1 month in advance. Thank you for your support to the warriors. I thought it might be because of the large number of people in the game this time, and they would add an event. Ryan said to Harry on the way back to the castle. Add one? Forgive me. Now I feel that I am about to give up my life on these 3 items. Ha said in a more exaggerated tone. Today, I went to the lake and into the woods again. I didn't feel anything because of the excitement during the game, but Harry felt like he was sore as soon as the game was over. Now I just want to go to bed quickly. Those of the Ministry of Magic have really considered adding 1 or 2 events. Hermione's number 1 Fang Earl, 3rd year Alicia, joined up from behind. My father listened to the uncle who worked in the Ministry of Magic during the family gathering, but because of the funds and the projects set up in a hurry, it was impossible to ensure safety and fairness. In the end, everyone decided to follow the tradition. What's fair? Harry asked, a little puzzled. The game should naturally be fair under the same rules. Not like this. Alicia shook her head. For example, the principal of Deemstrand proposed to add a ringing duel, which is easy to ensure safety and convenient preparation, but was rejected by the British because the ringing duel is pure fighting for strength. It is very unfair for the 4th graders of Hogwarts on this occasion because the 4th graders are not as magical as adults, and they do not have enough magic. After talking about Alicia, he glanced at Harry and pointed. Harry shrugged, a little bit depressed. I was offended by the low level, but I didn't want to participate in the game. Sometime after the second project ended, countless people came to ask Ryan and Harry what they encountered during the game. Because it is different from the previous too long, everyone in this game can only appreciate the beautiful lakes and mountains of the Scottish Highlands in the stands against the cool breeze in February. Except for a few players entering the water and running out of the water into the Forbidden Forest, they did not see any progress. Ryan is better because he spends most of his time in the library avoiding curious classmates. After all, Mrs. Peen's feather duster doesn't matter whether the game is not played or not. www.mplenovel.com. But Harry's side is inevitable for some trouble. In the past few days, Ginny and Ron had a little friction, because Ron felt that the front-end selection of Ginny on behalf of himself and Harry's friendship for several years was actually not as good as Ginny's half-year friendship, so during a break he flatly complained about Harry's despising friend. As a result, the spicy Ginny went straight back in the face of his little sister. Ron could only apologize repeatedly for his indecision. I figured it out. As long as Ginny feels good, I also believe that Harry can take care of my sister. This is what Ron said to the twins during the meal. Also at the dinner table, the twins found Ryan and asked if he could add physical defense to the bracelet because they have a customer who responded that the bracelet without physical defense function put him in danger. Do you know that Crumb bought that bracelet? This time I was almost pitted by my own bracelet in the Forbidden Forest, Ryan said to the twins with a slightly ugly face. This part of the alchemy product I made is different from the joke products in our store. Many of them are very serious magic props. So I personally suggest that you should check who the other party is when you sell that item in the future. I don't want one heap of black wizards holding my alchemy products to do bad things. This what you said makes sense. Fred said, we will try to verify the identity of the other party in the future. I will write to reject Crumb now. Don't. Ryan pulled the twins who were about to run away. Crumb is not a black wizard, he's just an opponent. Why don't the money make money? Write him and tell him that he can integrate physical defense into the bracelet, but the price is 3 times the original. Great. The twins gave Ryan a thumbs up, and then ran together to prepare a reply. Chapter 312, Alice Game. After entering March, the weather became clearer, but every time he came to the field outside, the cold wind still blew their hands and face sore. In recent days, the magic defense copper bracelets have been selling very well, probably because of their promotional effect. This forced Ryan to take some time to hurry up and make some more. In particular, a bracelet with integrated physical defense that can sell more than 100 gallons has sold 2 or 3. It can only be said that rich people in the magic world are really rich. On the day after class, Ryan suddenly received news from the grocery store in Wanji, and the puppets have temporarily ended their journey to the world of A Song of Ice and Fire and have returned home. When he found a time to avoid others entering the Wanji grocery store, he saw Rose Crystal sitting on a chair and humming happily. Brother, will you come to see me as soon as I come back? Rose Crystal was very happy that Ryan would be greeted as soon as she arrived home. Well, I came to a place where no one was there after class. How are you guys playing this time? Ryan asked as she took the comb from the doll and helped her comb her hair. Great, each of us played some gods this time, such as Kank Sing Shi. Queek Sing Shi went to the north of Westeros to play the old god. Canary took the young berries to Junlin to play the 7 gods. True Red is now Red God. The Mercury Lamp took away the of the 1,000 Faces. Yes, now they are playing a game. The victorious person can accompany Sister Alice and Father Luozen to go out alone for a weekend. You're not participating, so what are you doing so happy? Ryan asked, looking at the excited Rose Crystal. I'm the referee, brother. Idiot. Rose Crystal combed her hair and flew to Ryan's shoulder and pulled his hair. Originally they planned to take the of the cold and found that they was all obsessed with destroying living creatures. So the content of this game is to completely wipe out the of cold and his undead army and smash this god. Because everyone swears in the name of her sister, so this game is called the Alice Game. After listening to it, Ryan thought, it feels like this is much bigger than the original Alice Game scene. Thinking of Ryan turning to look at Rose Crystal here, is this game your own end? Of course not. The protagonist of that world is human. So in this game we are to inspire all human powers to guide them to defeat powerful enemies. As long as it is not too critical, we will not fight. Rose Crystal shook his head. After talking about this, Rose Crystal flew to the edge of a wooden box, opened the lid hard, and then smiled to Ryan. Look, our ocean caravan found a good baby this time. They went to sea and defeated the pirates on the road. Alou turned. What do you think? Lane stepped forward and saw a scale armor stacked in the wooden box covered with copper, showing a smoke-like black color. He discovered it when he picked up the armor. This armor is as light as a thin silk shirt. The edges of the scales are reddish gold, and the light flickers with a slight shaking. Pattern threads, runes and mysterious symbols on the metal are all etched on the steel. This is Valeria's steel armor with defensive magic. It can also be adjusted to a small extent according to the wearer's body. If I remember correctly, it should have been in the hands of the big pirate. Our crew. How did you defeat such a powerful pirate? I can't remember which martial arts of the ocean-going fleet is very good, and even the air rifle can't hurt people wearing this armor. Good luck, said Rose Crystal sitting on the edge of the box. Listening to the captain of the fleet, they said that on the way back from Bear Island, they encountered a dhow with black sails on the sea west of the ruins of Valeria. The whole ship was dyed red with paddle sails. The tall pirate wearing a blindfold stood at the bow of the ship and waved his command. After firing the gun, this pirate was set on fire because of being too conspicuous, and was directly hit into the sea by two 120mm steel core bombs. When he picked up the battlefield, he found that he was dead. The cause of death was multiple fractures in the body and multiple organ bleeding. Drowned in the water. But the armor on his body was intact, and the captain felt that he might be a baby. So he took her off the armor and brought it back. Ryan felt that this man was too unlucky. If it were melee, it was estimated that no one in the entire fleet was his opponent. In addition, this pair of armor might even be unmatched in the crowd. It is just because the times change is directly hit by the shells, and the scale armor will deform after resisting the blunt defense. As a result, the robbery was unsuccessful and he put himself in. However, Ryan would also like to thank the person of this age of incomprehension for his contribution, so that he had a Valeria steel product that appeared in the original text. With the help of Rose Crystal, Ryan put this armor on his body. After a little infusion of magic power, the arm shrank slightly and became close-fitting. After doing a few actions while wearing the armor, he found that the armor was very lightweight and would not obstruct the body's movements. Ryan pulled out a night sword from the space bag and made a set of actions to confirm this. Popper, Rose Crystal clapped hard as Ryan closed his sword, and his small face was full of smiles. Then the puppet jumped from the box and took a few books to Ryan. This is? Ryan asked, holding the book. Sisters gave it to me. They know that you are collecting all kinds of extraordinary power skills. After gaining the position, they copied all the extraordinary skills they can find and brought you a copy. Rose Crystal standing beside Ryan said with his head raised seriously. Really, thank you very much. Ryan thanked and put these books on a shelf and started the communication system to instill knowledge. Contrary to what he had previously thought, this time apart from some piecemeal techniques of attack www.mtlnovel.com, the main knowledge comes from the priests of the Red God, the Faceless of the God of the Thousand Faces and the Shapeshifter of the Old God. It's just that after removing some magic, such as prophecy, the resurrection of the Red God priest, and the green vision of the alien, that only works under the rules of the Song of Ice and Fire, the remaining part does not require many offset points. Under the premise that Ryan has mastered natural magic and assassin skills, the offset points required for many skill mastery have dropped greatly. After consuming only 26 offset points, Ryan mastered all the knowledge gained this time. After instilling knowledge, Ryan found his main gains through the inventory of the following. First, he mastered the power of flame. He can enchant weapons or shape the flame into any shape. Even he used flame in a grocery store to form a ladder and climb more than a meter high through the ladder. Secondly, the shapeshifter spell allows him to control an animal completely and accurately, rather than the fuzzy manipulation in natural magic. In the end, the biggest gain this time came from the inheritance of the Faceless. Fortunately, under the premise of mastering the magic, Ryan does not need to use a disgusting human skin mask to change its appearance. It only needs to obtain some hair or the body of the target like a compound soup. And there is enough. In addition, there is a lot of knowledge about the configuration of poisons and antidote. Although most of the ingredients in the medicine need to come from the world of Song of Ice and Fire, this knowledge is very useful in itself. Not to mention that as a king of that world, it was not so difficult to collect raw materials. In short, most of the power gained this time has something in common with the existing power. Ryan feels that as long as he uses alchemy to integrate these forces, his own strength will rise to a higher level. Those little puppets seem to be doing well in the world of Song of Ice and Fire. After saying goodbye to Rose Crystal, Ryan expressed emotion with satisfaction. Chapter 311, Finish the Game. This is really the 311 chapter, in front of the 311 game victory. I missed it when sending the draft box, sorry. When Ryan rushed to the open space, he found that the situation was completely different from what he had imagined. Harry was tying a wizard down on the ground under the guidance of Hermione, and Ginny had been released, watching with interest the work of Harry and Hermione. After hearing the sound of Ryan jumping from the tree to the ground, several people were nervously pointing in this direction with their wands. They were relieved when they saw that Ryan came out of the jungle. "Harry, how did you do it?" Ryan asked strangely, looking at Gustav, who was lying on the ground and tied into dumplings. According to his judgment, Harry is actually lower than Team Strong's player in combat effectiveness. In this case, it would be nice for Harry to drag enough time. He really did not guess that Harry could actually win the battle. "I think it's entirely because of luck." Ginny, who was standing idle next to him, said, "At first Harry and the man were hiding in the forest and shooting magic at each other, but at this time, neither side saw each other, and naturally they didn't fight. Until Harry used a spell to launch a bottle on his waist towards the opponent's position. The fired bottle exploded into a small cloud of red mist after hitting the tree. Then the other person screamed and fell with his face covered, and Harry easily stunned the other with a coma spell." "Is that devil pepper purified powder?" Ryan asked after recalling Ginny's description. "Yes, I fired the bottle of chili powder with the waddy waxy spell that Professor Lupin taught." Harry Gustav at this time and stood up and said to Ryan. After he reacted, it was too late to use the bubblehead mantra. "I saw him rubbing his eyes subconsciously and then drank a bottle of potion. But the bottle of potion was useless. He still hit his head against the tree. I was worried. He smashed his brain and stunned him with a coma spell." Harry was indeed a kind person. Looking at the two walnut eyes that had been swollen like walnuts, Mr. Gustav Lane also worried that his eyes would be damaged too badly, so he took a bottle of green lotion from his pocket and poured it on his eyes. The bottle of lotion was prepared in advance to avoid accidental injuries, and the effect was quite good. As soon as the liquid had flowed from Gustav's eyes, he frowned even when he was unconscious. Handling Mr. Gustav's eyes, Ryan and they began to walk towards the last point. Harry showed off a gold medal to Ryan at this time, which was found from Gustav, but now the speed of this four-person team was suddenly pulled down, because Ginny was even more uncomfortable with these bad roads in the forest. Fortunately, they still managed to get the last gold medal for them, but fortunately, they did not stay with them all the time, and Ginny twisted her foot on the way to the exit. "It's terrible." Ginny sat on the ground with her ankle covered. She accidentally stepped on a tree root that protruded from the ground, and she injured her foot. "If I and Harry stay to find a way, you and Hermione will go first," Ginny said as she sat on the floor. Harry nodded to the side and agreed. "What a silly thing to say, this is a team game, how can you throw you here?" After that, Ryan and Hermione got some branches and ran down nearby, and then turned these into a stretcher. The rest of the way Hermione used a floating spell to let the lying Ginny stretcher float in the air and follow them. In this case, the squad can only make a long way when encountering difficult road conditions. Fortunately, without the lower average speed of Ginella, the overall speed of travel will not decrease but rise. Wow, just 4 people less than 300 meters from the exit. They suddenly heard the sound of bushes swinging nearby. The enemy, or the creature in the forbidden forest? Just as the 4 men stared nervously at the tree, the bush snapped apart, and a wild sheep ran out of it, and Harry couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw it. You must know that the forest is not full of magical creatures. On the contrary, most of the creatures here are just ordinary animals, so it is not surprising to see wild sheep in this place. However, unsatisfactory in life always comes one after another. Just as Harry was about to relax, Lane's roar came over, ready to attack magic. Harry habitually raised his wand for the training experience over the past few days and pointed it at the place where the wild sheep just ran out. After preparing for it, he reacted and asked what he wanted to ask. A rustling voice came in front. "What?" Harry saw a full-sized spider out of the bush without asking. It excitedly moved the claws and made a clicking sound. Just as the 8-eyed giant spider was about to pounce on Ryan and Harry's stun spell also hit the spider and let it fly straight out. In the battle of killing spiders in the 2nd grade, Lane combined the horsemen and unicorns in the forest to kill most of the spiders, but unfortunately there are still a small number of spiders that successfully escaped. Although the horsemen and unicorns have not stopped hunting down the remaining 8-eyed giant spiders in recent years, unfortunately these scattered 8-eyed giant spiders have also learned to hide. In addition, these spiders are not easy to pursue after scattered escape, so they have not been completely exterminated. The 8-eyed giant spider in front of him should be a fish in the net. Ryan volunteered to walk into the grass to examine the 8-eyed giant spider, and Harry asked Hermione, "Hermione, what is this thing?" "How do you magnify the spider?" "This is an 8-eyed giant spider," Hermione explained. "In the jungle of Clementon, the intelligence is close to that of human beings. The reason they are denied to be intelligent creatures is because they love human flesh." "What?" Harry was shocked, and Ryan just came out of the bushes. After finding the spider, he used a fire spell to cremate the 8-eyed giant spider in the coma. www.mplnovel.com. All kinds of spiders are covered with hair, so they quickly burned a ball of coke. This kind of cannibalistic monster should be wiped out cleanly. After listening to Ryan saying that he had killed the 8-eyed giant spider, Harry agreed. As far as I know, many students have the habit of wandering around in the Forbidden Forest. What if they attack those younger students? The person who brought this Southeast Asian spider into the Forbidden Forest did make a big mistake. Fortunately, he didn't tell Harry that this was raised by his friend Hagrid, otherwise he would be uncomfortable. Lane thought so. The following journey was smooth, and the Hogwarts team successfully exited the exit 10 minutes later. The stand that was built on the lake when we left was now moved near the exit of the Forbidden Forest. When they saw 3 people walking out of the exit with a stretcher, there was a loud noise in the auditorium. God, it's the Hogwarts team. Yes, it's them. What happened to them before they came out with a stretcher? Are there any dragons in the Forbidden Forest, causing heavy casualties to the team? Fortunately, at this time, Ginny stood up with Harry's help, and did not let the audience in the stands continue to get in a worse direction. Soon Bagman came from the referee seat. Gentlemen, please hand over your gold medals now. Ryan said they heard the 12 gold medals harvested from their pockets. After Bagman brought the gold medal back to the referee, the principals of the other 2 schools immediately looked ugly. Because the students at Hogwarts won half of the gold medal and the winner of this game has no suspense. But Ryan didn't see the scene. After handing over the gold medals, they were escorted by Madame Pomfrey into the medical tent on the side. Chapter 313, Slaughter Fat Sheep. As Ryan expected, when using alchemy to fuse new skills, the higher the relevance of these new skills to the old ones, the faster they will fuse. It only took more than a week for Ryan to brand the runes representing these new knowledge in the bright red spheres suspended in his sea of knowledge. This also means that his preliminary integration succeeded in this knowledge, and the rest is to use time and practice to continue to be familiar with the water milling skills that blend these forces. When he was busy with these things, he realized that Hogsmeade Day is coming this Saturday. At breakfast, a new issue of The Witcher Weekly was delivered to many people. Rita Skeet once again promoted his rumor-making skills, accusing Ginny of being an ambitious witch who robbed his brother's lover, while Ron became a pitiful party in this story and gave up for his sister-beloved lover. You shouldn't mess with Rita Skeeter when you go to Hogsmeade. She ugliness you into that kind of scheming girl. Ron said to her sister. Don't you know what the woman was doing at that time? She kept angering Harry, trying to find out from Harry's answer what was not good for him. I can't watch Harry fall into her trap right now. Ginny shouted to Ron loudly, even attracting many students to watch them. It's a disgusting man. Ron immediately stood up and cursed at the sisters' side after learning the truth. This new article makes everyone feel very angry when they know the truth. The only thing that makes them happy is that most of the students don't think Rita Skeet is saying what is true. Even the Slytherins who were provocative with the content of the book could see from their faces that they did not trust every word that Rita Skeet said. After going through the last potion lesson this Friday, at the noon the next day after Ryan and Hermione completed their morning combat exercises, the 2 left the castle and saw a silvery, faint sun shining as they walked out of the gate. The venue. The weather is the warmest in a year, and finally the long and severe winter has passed, and spring has arrived. What is the thing you carry? Hermione asked curiously after passing through the gate of the castle. Because Ryan is different from usual today, he carried a lilac box beautifully inlaid with gold rims in his hand. Well, my loved ones, look at Ryan said a little vaguely in the following words. Hermione only thought it was an important gift he was going to give to a loved one. After talking for a few days, Hermione left the question about the box behind her. After buying snacks at the Duke of Honey, the 2 decided to take a rest at the 3 Broom Bars. Hey, Harry, why are you alone here? As soon as he entered the bar, Ryan saw Harry sitting at a table by himself. So he stepped forward and patted his shoulder and asked, Ryan, Hermione is you? Harry turned around and said hello. I came here with Ron. Ginny went to the bathroom. Ron is now eating at the bar. After he finished, he pointed his finger at the bar. Sure enough, Ron's red hair by the bar looked very much conspicuous. I'll buy some drinks, Ryan said to Hermione and ran to the front of the bar to order drinks. When he came with the butterbeer and chips, he saw that Harry and Ron had already started drinking. Well, are there any potions you gave me in the last game? Harry took a deep breath after chatting for a while, then asked a little embarrassedly. Of course. You ask what this is doing? Lane looked at Harry. If you still have a similar potion, please sell it to me. After all, the game is really too dangerous. Of course, I will pay for the potion on the market. Harry hesitated and said, this style is not like you. Hermione said next to him, I know you have always been as long as you can do it and never refuse to trouble others. Things like asking competitors to buy medicine are not like your initiative. Made it. Okay, Hermione. Ryan, who looked at the fever on his face, stopped Hermione from continuing to say, after all, as a good relationship student and a good shield, Ryan did not want Harry to be seriously injured in the game. He was worried that Hermione had retracted Harry after being embarrassed. Of course, it was not unexpected for Harry to make this, because he knew that Harry had been communicating with his godfather, Sirius, and in this case Sirius would certainly make a lot of practical suggestions. For example, ask Ryan to buy some potions that are not easy to find on the market. And for Ryan, he himself welcomed Harry to buy his things, because these potions had at least 3 times the profit. Last time, I think you gave you a discount for your friend. 35 gallons will do. I will give it to you before next Wednesday. After Ryan's offer, Harry smiled. Ryan thanks. Sirius should also give him afterwards science about how much the potions he brought last time were worth, so Harry was happy that Lane was willing to sell him high-quality potions cheaply. By the way, and I have a newly developed potion you may need. After seeing Harry handing 35 gallons to himself, Lane quickly thought about what else he could do from Harry. Feather sheep hair. Soon, he thought of his latest new product. Lane took 2 small knot-sized fully enclosed glass tubes filled with 2/3 silver blue liquid from the waste bag and shook Harry, then asked, Harry, do you want this medicine to come? Support? Is this? Harry and Ron looked at the glass tube with a puzzled look. Ryan looked around and lowered his voice and said, this is a potion made of cursed unicorn blood. Even if you are after being fatally injured, as long as you drink it, you can die for a whole day. The prescription and raw materials I got because of the good relationship with the horseman in the Forbidden Forest wave the tribe www.mplnovel.com. God, get rid of the curse. The life potion made of unicorn blood. I always thought it was just a legend. Ron exclaimed in a low voice. I saw this thing in a book at home. Since the wizard and the horses parted ways, this kind of thing has been very, very rare in history. Only the wizards who have made good contact with the horses have this. Ryan, you may be the first human wizard who can make this in more than 100 years. Is that so exaggerated? Harry looked puzzled when he looked at Ron. Of course. The rich pureblood families have basically endless demand for this life-saving potion. I heard that there is one in the Malfoy family. When Grandfather Draco got the potion, he also had a special party. Celebrate. It's a pity that this medicine can only hang its life and has no effect on the disease. After so many years, it is estimated that his medicine has also failed. So, how much is this medicine? After listening to Ron's introduction, Harry began to worry that his wallet might not be able to afford the price. 300 gallons. Lane spit out a number. So expensive. So cheap. Harry and Ron exclaimed at the same time, but what they said was completely different. Know that Malfoy spent at least 1,200 gallons when he bought that medicine, so 300 gallons of Lane really charged only one material. Ron said to Harry who was watching him. Ron is right. I think it's only because of our good relationship and the one who bleeds together. If you want to buy the second one, it will be 1,000 gallons. Ryan also said. Finally, Harry gritted his teeth and bought the potion. At the same time, he also agreed with Ron that Ryan would not spread the news outside. Chapter 314, Accident. After completing the transaction, Harry stated that he did not have that much cash for the time being. Ryan simply handed the test tube directly to Harry, and at the same time helped him seal the tube directly into the collar of his robe and gave him a demonstration, telling him to just bite when it was dangerous. After all, when there is a real-life crisis, there may be no time to dig out your pockets. After that, Ryan told him that he could let Sirius appraise before paying for the holiday. Of course, if he is unfortunately used in the game, he will naturally know whether the potion is real. After a while, Ginny walked over and greeted everyone and pulled Harry to say that he would give him a gift. Seeing this scene, they were very jealous and said goodbye. Out of the 3 broom doors, Ron greeted Ryan and they went straight to Zoko's joke shop. Ryan and Hermione hung out together on the street. Do you need to send your gift to your loved ones? Hermione asked, pointing at the box in Ryan's hand. Oh no, I mean wait a while. Ryan quickly digressed. By the way, when Ginny just came over, it seemed that I smelled her perfume like the one you bought me. Are you sure you gave me the last men's perfume? Relax, I won't be wrong. Wait, what you just said is Ginny. But Ginny never uses perfume. She used to tell me that she wouldn't buy any luxury goods before working to make money. Are you sure that the smell is not Harry's? Hermione's rebuttal made Ryan feel a little uneasy, and he once again determined, does Ginny really use perfume? Yeah, do you care so much about what Ginny does with perfume? Hermione frowned and looked a little ugly. I'm worried that Ginny is in trouble. After that, Ryan took Hermione and ran to the 3 brooms. On the way, he said to Hermione, since Harry somehow became the so-called warrior, I always felt that someone was there, trying to do something bad for Harry. Today, Ginny reminds me that the Black Hand behind the scenes can not only directly attack Harry, but also target the people around him. Sure enough, when they rushed into the 3 brooms, they saw a group of people around the toilet door. Ryan and Hermione looked at each other, and they both saw a trace of anxiety in each other's eyes. What's going on here? Ryan asked a classmate who was standing in the crowd watching the lively crowd. I heard that a Gryffindor girl collapsed in the bathroom. The boy stopped by Ryan said. At this moment the crowd began to separate, and it was Ginny Weasley on the floating stretcher. She was lying there with her eyes closed, and she seemed to have lost consciousness. The sound of inhalation began to sound from the crowd around. Everyone, don't have to worry. This girl just passed out. She will be back to normal after a while. The Ministry of Magic staff floating on a stretcher with a magic wand found out that all the people watching were staring at them. Because of the recent competition in the top 3, Hogsmeade also has many Ministry of Magic staff. After discovering that something was wrong here, those staff arrived in the first time. When they arrived at the scene, they began to deal with the wounded and investigate the scene, while appeasing the uneasy bystanders around them. If Ginny was unconscious, who was the Ginny who just went out with Harry? After seeing the stretchers with 3 brooms floating out, they thought about the problem at the same time, and now things are completely out of control. I think we should inform the professors first. Hermione calmed down and chose the most reasonable one at this time. As soon as they rushed out of the bar, one person stopped 2 people. Ryan didn't know the witch who was blocking the road, but her age and robe looked like senior students at Hogwarts. Hufflepuff. Harry just asked me to give you this. Then he pulled out an iron box from his pocket. Hermione was about to reach for it, but Ryan found that the girl's expression looked a bit strange. He immediately thought of the unforgivable spell that Moody had spoken that day in the black magic defense class, and the girl's expression was like a soul-taking spell. Don't touch this box. Ryan thought of taking a step forward here to pull Hermione's outstretched arm. She didn't expect the girl to push the box homeward and hit the place where Ryan took Hermione's hand. Ryan's hand disappeared from the street as soon as it was touched by the iron box. Hermione, who was also touched by the iron box, disappeared with him. It's not good. Some people are comatose. The people around them hadn't reacted to what happened after they discovered the situation. They saw the senior girl who had the iron box in the chaos and suddenly passed her eyes and fainted. Fortunately, the news of Ginny's coma had been sent back to the castle at this time. When Moody and Madame Pomfrey arrived, they happened to see the disappearance of Ryan and Hermione and the coma of the girl. Keep off. Moody separated the chaotic crowd with his cane and then bent down to search the girl. After waving a magic wand and reading a few spells at the girl, as a golden light swept through, the girl began to emit dark green smoke. Damn it, the Black Wizard's curse. Moody immediately saw the cause of the girl's coma, and he began to release a counter-curse at the girl. Mrs. Pomfrey, my spell can only temporarily make the situation no longer worse, and now you need to hurry her to Street Munger. The Hogwarts School Hospital may not be able to handle it. What about you, Alasto? Madame Pomfrey stepped up to take over Moody's work and began releasing counter-curses on the girls. Mrs. Moody Pomfrey, who was looking at trying to leave, asked directly. I'm going to see what happened. This kind of thing is probably a conspiracy. Moody replied in a very serious tone. Since Harry was inexplicably selected as a warrior, I feel something is wrong. www.novel.com. Now I'm going to see what ghost tricks are being played by those behind the scenes. Having finished speaking, Moody began to question the audience around him. Many staff around the Ministry of Magic grew up listening to Moody's story, and even older wizards and Moody had worked together. So after figuring out what he was doing, many Ministry of Magic staff also joined the ranks of inquiring witnesses around him. It's a pity that the witnesses just didn't notice Ryan. Only 2 girls who were close said they heard Ryan yell to Hermione, don't touch the box. But the 2 of them disappeared as soon as the words fell. This should be the use of door keys to capture people. Moody's concluded after summarizing the testimony of all witnesses. Unfortunately, we don't know anything except this. The purpose of the attacker. Who is the attacker? Not sure. Now I have to wait for the unconscious person to wake up before continuing to ask. Moody immediately returned to Hogwarts, because Ginny was simply hit by a coma curse. So when Moody rushed to the school hospital, Ginny had awakened under the effect of the anti-curse. But she also looked at a loss, because she was attacked while holding water to wash her face, and she never saw who the attacker was. The investigation was in a dilemma for a while, and suddenly there was a noise at the entrance of the school hospital, breaking the awkward silence. It turned out that after the 2 people were in a coma, the school ordered all the students in Hogsmeade to return to the castle immediately, and the Weasley family brothers on the road heard that there was a comatose who was his sister, and as a result, they quarreled with the staff of the Ministry of Magic at the door. Let them come in. Moody said, their sister is fine, and I have almost finished asking all the questions. Chapter 315, Overall Plan. Ginny, are you okay? Is there any discomfort now? Now the 3 Weasley brothers at school saw Ginny lying on the bed and hurried forward to ask about the situation. After a while, they confirmed the gold. The 3 talents were relieved when it was fine. Why did you faint in the bathroom alone? How about Harry? Ron asked the question in his heart at this time. Harry? After entering 3 broomsticks, I passed out in the bathroom, and was lifted out just now. How could I know where Harry went? Ginny replied with a confused look. Isn't he with you? No. Ron's eyes were horrified. Obviously after you came out of the bathroom, you said you would give Harry a gift, and I left them with Ryan. Hermione, if you didn't come out after entering the bathroom, then pull Harry and say to surprise him. Who is Ginny? Alasto, I need your help. The student who just counted us back to school found that Harry was gone. We are going to find him now. Dumbledore's voice came from the door. I already guessed, and that person took Harry away after disguising as Miss Ginny. Moody turned his head and looked at Dumbledore. The only thing I don't know is why the guy hiding in the shadows also took Ryan and Hermione away. I guess it may be to divert attention, because the Aurors just rescued Miss Rosetta's nephew from the wine cellar of the 3 Brooms. According to his description, he was imprisoned in a large box after being attacked this summer. Here, the person who kidnapped him pulled out some hair from his head every once in a while. It was only today that he was given a potion and hid in an empty wine barrel. The only reason he survived was that the person left. I didn't want to let pure blood bleed again. It seems that he was also out of the pack, and the guy who came in lurked under our eyes for more than a semester and was never found. Dumbledore said word by word. Ron and they could feel this time Dumbledore's anger. Throwing a note into the goblet of fire should also be done by this person. Moody continued. We always order drinks with 3 brooms for this kind of activity, and they often deliver to the door after school curfew in the evening. That person can just mix into the castle as an escort, and it's easy for him to confuse the magic level of the goblet. A house elf who can control the inspection with a soul-spelling mantra, then spends more than 10 minutes to go to the hall and throw a note before returning. Most of the wizards in Britain graduated from Hogwarts. For these wizards it's not difficult to quickly complete such operations while being familiar with the terrain. Everyone present agreed with Moody's reasoning, but as the saying goes, Fu Wash Wang is not alone. Just as the school hospital entered a dead silence, Cedric rushed in and said in panic, "Professor, no good." Madame Pomfrey was stunned outside the village of Hogsmeade. The girl was gone. But strange it was after we counted the number that no one knew the girl. Damn. Even Professor Dumbledore, who seemed calm just now, stood up. Now immediately notify the Ministry of Magic that the student is missing, and then mobilize all those who can mobilize to find it. I want to see who is behind the ghost. Just a quarter of an hour before everyone at Hogwarts was busy looking for the missing 3 students, Harry was still happy to leave the 3 broomsticks because Ginny said she was going to give him a special gift. She didn't want others to watch it when she gave it. Harry was not suspicious, because Ginny was always shy in front of him, even after she started to fall in love. He only regarded Ginny's current behavior as a shyness for his girlfriend. After avoiding the sights of students and tourists coming and going from the street to the forest behind the 3 brooms, Ginny pulled out a gift box wrapped in fine wrapping paper from her pocket. As we all know, lovers in love are always willing to find some places where the light is not enough. Such shyness will be quietly obscured, and those love words will be easy to reveal. Of course, this may also be related to people who naturally feel that the dim light can hide themselves, which is convenient for doing things that are not convenient to do in a large public. But Harry is obviously unlucky today. He opened the gift box's wrapping paper and was in the dim grove by the woman lad who drank the compound soup with an illegal door key disguised as a gift. After confirming that Harry was successfully sent away, this Ginny took another sip of the compound soup and turned into a little country witch who came to the town for more than a month. After that, his clothes were also modified with a want to pretend to be a hero Chai-Pach senior girl. Finally, after changing a mirror to confirm that there were no flaws, she walked directly to the direction of the 3 Brooms Hotel, while still thinking in her mouth. Those lowly creatures dare to set conditions with the Great Master. They should be honestly creeping at the feet of the Master. But this is also good. I can dry out the few mud species that covered the pure blood and glory, and let all the mud species. We all know that they don't match the power of finger magic. After that, this pretty face suddenly turned into a terrible. Soon after adjusting his expression, he gave himself a soul recapture curse and a curse, because he knew that only in this way can he act more realistically. Everything that happened next was in his plan. After sending Ryan and Hermione in this way, he tricked Moody, who hurriedly checked himself at that time. Then, in a place with few outsiders, she stunned Mrs. Pomfrey and used phantoms to return to her master. When he came to this forest-side clearing, the sound of the waves and the smell of the sea in the distance made him relax a lot. He knew that he had arrived on the intended island. In front of him Harry was already tied to a tree stump. Within a few seconds, the effect of the compound soup was over. A man with pale skin, slightly freckles, and a pale yellow hair between young and middle-aged men wearing a very unsuitable Hogwarts school uniform stands the www.mplnovel.com. If Professor Dumbledore is here, you can recognize this person was the little Batik Crouch who was sent to Azkaban by his father. Who? Little Batty panted, although the curse was prepared in advance, but there were still some side effects after the curse was lifted, especially for his long-term imprisonment at home, which caused his body to be very weak even more so. This was just a long-distance move and he was already breathless. However, there was a scary smile on his face, because he successfully kidnapped Harry under the heavy supervision of the Ministry of Magic and Dumbledore. In addition, he also kidnapped to use their dirty hands to stain the mud species of the Merlin Medal. Can send the Merlin Medal to the mud. The Ministry of Magic is also degraded. He shook his head away from the fact that displeased him, and his loyalty to his master increased a bit. Thanks to the master's wise plan, he was able to complete this seemingly impossible task. Was thinking of this, his eyes suddenly frozen, and then through an excited look from his eyes. Although it was getting dark, Batty saw a short man step by step from the darkness, wearing a hooded cloak, covering his face. In his arms was the master who was temporarily in a baby state. After approaching, Batty discovered that his master was watching him with approving eyes. This made him feel very excited, as if a stream of heat was flowing all over his body. Because the adult actually came to pick him up. Chapter 316, Resurrection. Master, I have handed Harry Potter into your hands, little Batty said in a mixed tone of humility and fanaticism. The whole person bent his waist down like a shrimp, looking at his face. If Voldemort stood there at this time, he would kiss Voldemort's feet without hesitation. Very good. You will get an unexpected reward. The snake-faced baby hissed, as if it were a snake. "Take me over and let me see our guests." Little Batty took the baby version of Voldemort without hesitation, when a gust of wind blew off the hood of the little wizard, revealing a wretched face. Peter really went after Voldemort after escaping Azkaban. The package containing Voldemort was lifted to Harry in front of little Batty, and then a hissing sound came from the package. "How great the spray is! We have prepared for half a year in order to obtain him. Fortunately, our raid time is well grasped, and the goal was reached unexpectedly smoothly," Voldemort said with emotion. Variously Voldemort's voice turned cold. "Now, what are you waiting for here?" After hearing this, Peter quickly walked away with his waist, and after a while a heavy stone crucible was pushed out from behind a small mound. The crucible seemed to be completely filled. When it moved, he could hear the liquid inside. Splashing sound. The potion in the pot is concentrated in a large amount of expensive medicinal materials and is as clear and transparent as water. If this pot of potion is scrapped, even Voldemort himself needs to make another pot for at least 3 months, which is still did not count the effort to collect materials before. After putting the pot in place, Wormtail scratched the bottom of the crucible with a wand. Suddenly a crackling flame popped under the crucible. This pot of rare and expensive potions was quickly boiled with the help of flames, and its surface jumped frantically, even splashing sparks from time to time, as if burning. The surrounding steam became thicker and thicker, and the figure of the Wormtail looking after the flames became blurred. The sharp, cold voice came from the fog again. "It's now, hurry up!" With a serious expression, little Batty untied the swaddle in his hand as a holy thing. Exposed the dark red skin, without a trace of hair, a limb deformity and a monster with a flat snake face with red eyes. But little Batty showed no trace of disgust. He gently held the monster like he held the most precious treasure in the world. Then he lifted this guy up and put it smoothly into the crucible that was boiling and sparking. Voldemort's resurrection drama is about to begin. To be precise, this is not a resurrection. This resurrection does not exist in this Harry Potter world. Only those high magic worlds are likely to give birth to this completely anti-Sky skills. What Voldemort is doing now is not so much a resurrection as it is to remake a body for his weak broken soul. After all, Voldemort, who made the Horcrux, was not dead, and naturally it was impossible to resurrect. The two Voldemort's running dogs present showed a surprised look, because even the most recognized White Wizard Dumbledore had no way to resurrect, so that he regretted taking his sister to death for a lifetime. In this case, the drama of Voldemort's death and resurrection naturally made these two Death Eaters adore. For example, Peter was already agitated and unstable at this time. But the little buddy in charge of the ceremony was more reliable than the original Peter. At least he did not shake his hands when removing the clay pot from a stump. He tapped the pot with his wand. "Father's bones were inadvertently donated to regenerate your son." It seems that Voldemort had dug up his father's grave, but this did not bring him any psychological pressure. Digging a grave is nothing compared to killing a father's family by hand. With his recitation, a small ray of dust flew out of the jar and fell gently into the crucible. The diamond-like liquid surface ruptured, hissed, sparks splashed, and the liquid turned into a bright blue color, which at first glance gave people the feeling that this liquid was absolutely highly toxic. After using it, little Batty carefully put away the jar. Of course, this is not the mole father who respects Voldemort, but because this medicine is also a limited amount of the father's bone. In case Voldemort needs it again next time, this thing will come in handy again. Anyway, there is not much ashes used in a potion. The amount remaining in the jar is estimated to be enough for Voldemort to use it 10 times or 8 times. After checking that this step was correct, Batty did not hesitate to roll up his sleeves and reach above the crucible. Then he said in a firm tone, "The servant's meat, donated voluntarily, will regenerate your master." Then the other hand drew the dagger from the leg and cut it violently. There was no slight pain in Batty's face, but he watched his arm fall into the pot with a martyr's ecstasy. The blue medicament turned fiery red, and at the same time a strong light was emitted outward. The dwarf star Peter has been completely conquered by this scene. He knelt down there in front of the pot, without knowing what he muttered. Little Batty first sealed the wound on his arm with a spell, then he approached Harry with a dagger and a crystal bottle. Just as he came to Harry in preparation for the knife, a clay pot suddenly flew out of the woods next to him and hit Peter kneeling beside the pot. Soon a green flame enveloped him, making him scream and tumbling on the ground. At the same time, runes simmering in Voldemort's crucible also appeared. One rune to block the approaching flame, but the barrier formed by these runes quickly shook under the lick of the green flame, and it did not seem to support too long time. No, but he crouched, and when he was about to turn back to rescue the crucible, he heard an angry voice from the pot. "Now finish the ceremony, hurry." Suddenly, a blade of shadow hit the rope tied to the tree stump, and the rope broke off. Harry fell suddenly to the ground. Harry was awakened by the impact. He didn't care about sorting the collar that had been turned up to cover his mouth and nose because he fell to the ground, and after seeing everything in front of him, he subconsciously kicked the little Batty who came to him with a dagger knee. Batty stood unsteadily after hitting a foot, but swooped forward and hugged Harry at the command of the master. Then his mouth gnawed at Harry's face directly across the clothes. Just as he chewed up, Little Batty felt as if he had broken Harry's teeth. A salty sweet smell flowed into his mouth. Just as Batty planned to take advantage of the victory to get Harry's blood. www.mtlnovel.com. Another shadow blade flew over. Perhaps the attacker was worried about hitting Harry, who was holding him, and the sharp blade just flew diagonally from his leaking leg, and directly removed his left knee below the knee. Little Batty showed a sad and crazy look, and then yanked down the clothes blocking Harry's face and bit directly. There was a deep wound on Harry's face. The blood of the enemy was forced to give. To make your enemy resurrected. After reading the spell, the little Crouch raised his head and spit out a spit of blood-red saliva. He came out and flew directly into the crucible under the blessing of magic. At this time, another blade of shadow flew over, and Harry was horrified to see the little Batty's head rolled down. A few seconds later, he heard the voice of a strange little girl behind him. "You, run with me quickly." With Harry's spit flowing into the pot, the light and dark flame immediately lit up. The crucible was about to boil, and the diamond-like Mars splashed out, bright and dazzling, making everything around black velvet color. Although this practice makes the ceremony imperfect, it can even be said to be a bit shameful. But the blood of the last enemy was also considered a pot. Even though Lin Zong shot several sharp blades made of black shadows, they were stopped by the white mist from the pot. Finally, a man's black figure slowly rose from the crucible, tall and thin, like a skeleton. Voldemort was resurrected. Chapter 317, Acquaintance. In this drama of Lord Voldemort's resurrection, the students involved are not only Harry, but also Ryan and Hermione. The moment when the box was handed over, Ryan knew that something was going to happen this time. Because normal people wouldn't be so anxious to hand over things when they were so rawed. He just thought that there might be a curse on the box, so he stretched out Hermione while laying a magic barrier on the hands of the two. Unfortunately, he guessed wrong on this, and the iron box touched their hands as soon as the iron box was laid out. Then Ryan felt that there seemed to be a hook behind his belly button with an irresistible momentum, and his feet flew off the ground. "How is the door key?" Ryan was a little ignorant on the spot. Because he was not Harry Potter, I don't know why someone would kidnap himself in this way of kidnapping the protagonist. "Is it because I'm handsome?" Ryan clapped Hermione's hand and the box on the other hand while sneering with a sneer. He could feel Hermione's shoulders touching him from time to time, and there was a wind blowing in his ears, as if flying at high speed. Finally, his feet landed heavily on the ground, and at the same time, he smoothly supported Hermione. "What is this place?" Hermione looked around and found that the light was very dim here, and she could only vaguely see that they seemed to be trapped in a very small space, which was covered with strict stone walls on all 5 sides. Only one side was blocked by a thick wooden fence with a few arms. Through the gap between the fences, I can only vaguely see that it is a stone corridor outside. Seeing all of this, Hermione leaned back to Ryan a little nervously. "How do you feel? Here is gloomy. Are we in a secret room or cave?" Ryan nodded his head in agreement, because he smelled the extremely cold, turbid, and earthy air around him. Obviously, they should be in a place without many vents, and some underground buildings are the most likely. "Speak English from now on," Ryan said in advanced Valyria. "I don't know if there are any enemies around, so we better treat them as enemies by now. By the way, once you find an enemy, you'd better use the power of blood and shadow first." "Okay," Hermione answered in the same language. "But, do you really need to use some dangerous magic this time? Didn't you say it was used in real war?" "Yes," Ryan said in a heavy tone. "I think it's a real war now. Aren't these dangerous magics all prepared for a real war? Now, our war is coming and we use it. It's time for them." After he finished speaking, Ryan said, "Yes, we have a helper when it comes to fighting." Then he bent down and put the purple wooden box on the ground, then knocked on the box lid. "Okay, my dear sister, should you come out now? Now I need your help." Hermione wonders why Ryan suddenly knocked on the box and told the box to let his sister help him. Because as far as she knew, Ryan was the only child in the family, and there were no siblings at all. Isn't it the magic that affects the mind? While she was worried, the lid of the box slid quietly and quickly, and then a girl's voice came out. Brother fool, you will be stirred up in someone else's conspiracy for some meeting. I really admire your luck, but I am also honored to be able to fight side by side with my brother again." The villain about a centimeter sat up from the box and responded to Ryan with a girlish voice. This voice is a little bit sharp in the speech, but from the tone of their conversation, they can hear that the two people have a good relationship. The sharpness is just an expression of concern. After teasing Ryan, the little guy turned to a very pretty lady and gave a dressing ceremony to Hermione. "Nice to meet you, Miss Granger. Today I wanted to see what my older brother's girlfriend looks like, but I saw him take you to a dangerous place again. So I want to apologize to you, my stupid brother." "Oh, that's right. I forgot my self-introduction." The little guy looked up and looked at Hermione. "My name is Rose Crystal and I'm the elder brother's sister." "Rose Crystal?" Hermione felt that the name was not like a normal person's name. Rose Crystal as an alchemy doll naturally saw Hermione's confusion. So she further explained, "I am not a human being, but an alchemist puppet who was given life by his brother. Okay, Ryan interrupted them. Let's go out here first and let's talk. Hermione, if you want to talk back, you can take Rose Crystal directly to your dormitory to talk. Sharpened Valeria's steel dagger cut open the wooden fence and went out. As soon as they came to the corridor, they heard footsteps approaching here, and soon a figure appeared around the corner. Ryan immediately cast shadow magic to tie this guy like a dumpling. Vampire? The two fangs exposed by the mouth of this man who fell to the ground clearly showed his identity. Lion quickly cut the door of another cell with a dagger, and then walked in with the captive. This cell is not empty. A middle-aged man with a pale face in a mountaineering suit fell down the corner. Ryan used magic to easily detect that he had lost his life, and the two blood holes in his neck clearly showed what killed him. Why did the vampire kidnap me here? Lane thought about this while setting up magic around him. After the defense magic was set up, he began to interrogate the captives. Unfortunately, this vampire didn't cooperate. After discovering that there was magic protection around the sound that could not pass out. No matter what Ryan said, he shut his mouth tightly. But think about it and know that since vampires see humans as their food, how can they be willing to answer the question of food in their eyes seriously? So, the biggest bug in literary works that fall in love with humans and vampires is here. Just as people don't fall in love with chickens, ducks and geese as food, how big a heart do those vampires need to fall in love with their own food? But there is still a way to deal with this. Ryan www.mplnovel.com. He took a bottle of sunlight crystals from his pocket, and then let Rose Crystal help pry this guy's mouth open. After his mouth was pried open, Ryan began to feed the vampire one by one to the sunshine crystal. Vampires don't die when they see the sun, but it's true that the natural dark power in them is restrained by the power of sunlight. After starting to feed the sun crystal, Lane discovered that this vampire was not as stubborn as he had shown before. After swallowing more than a dozen sun crystals, he cried and asked for cooperation, only to ask Ryan to give it after a while. He was happy. Interviewed Ryan and learned that this group of vampires sold a large number of rare herbs to a black wizard, after they found that the black wizard was in a hurry to get the goods. In addition to asking the black wizard for high amounts of money, the group of vampires also made a magic contract and asked the black wizard to send some delicious little wizards to the elder vampire. This vampire was just sent out to pick up the goods. The secret strongholds where they are located are found in many places in Europe. They are all built to secretly supply vampires with human food. For example, the muzz body in the corner of this cell was caught by this vampire when he came out to hunt, because all the blood with magical creatures are supplied to the advanced vampires, and these bottom vampires can only go out by themselves hunting moles. It seems that this time it was a big event. Ryan came to such a conclusion after the interrogation, because he has now discovered a great secret, a secret worthy of others to come to silence. Chapter 318, Plan. Now, all the vampires in Europe have stopped their hunting behavior for humans, and they promised to use the blood of other animals as food instead of hunting humans. This is what Minister Barnard brought to Europe after taking office. The wizards and all humans are a gift. From now on we no longer have to worry about vampires hurting us, so please cheer yourself. The Prophet Daily, December 21, 1980, front page. The above content was seen by Ryan in the old newspapers in the Hogwarts collection. After defeating Voldemort, the British Ministry of Magic and the wizards of various countries brought the victory to persuade the vampires who were standing on the side of Voldemort to give up their practice of sucking blood. But now it seems that the wizards are cheering too early. From at least the analysis of this prison and the confessions of the captured vampires, Ryan knew that there was a strong family of vampires who still maintained large-scale hunting for humans after the agreement was signed. At the same time, they have used their accumulated wealth for thousands of years to buy some wizards to close their eyes on their behavior, and even use some precious treasures to lure some black wizards to kidnap the wizards as their food. And these have been perfectly hidden. You know that wizards in the magic world may accept some vampires out of control to attack moles, but they are never allowed to hit the wizards' own heads with these vampires. Once this kind of thing is exposed, there are definitely more than one or two people involved. Ryan recalled the rich American man who was inexplicably dead in the detention facility he saw from the report not long ago. Even if the American survey results say he committed suicide, as long as people with normal brains know what happened to him. Ryan now finds that if he doesn't solve this matter completely, he will probably commit suicide soon. It seems that we can only use some more extreme means to solve this matter, but because there are many vampire families as opponents, it seems that we need some helpers. The girls called, and they took out a pair of powerful enchanted shackles and completely tied the vampire on the ground. Ryan was worried about the life-tracking magic on this vampire. In order to avoid the suspicion of the vampires in the old den, he could only spare his life to tie him up temporarily. Hermione took over the task of optimizing the captive when he went to battle. Give it to me. If he wants to escape, I will stab him. Hermione just closed the eyes of the dead mole and prayed for him on his deathbed. Because she sorted out the remains of the deceased and saw the family portrait carried on the deceased, her eyes were full of anger now. Ryan was a little worried that it would be dangerous for Hermione to watch over a vampire alone. In order to ensure the safety of Hermione, Lane also called out the pet Xiao King, who was posing as a carpet in the Wanji grocery store, and let it help guard the captives together. "Brother, we are back." A space door opened violently, and Rose Crystal jumped out of it for the first time, followed by Mr. Liu Zhen's puppet daughters. At the end, a doll that Ryan had never seen jumped out of the space door. She was wearing a white keyboard bud skirt, white long lace-up boots, and long pinkish-orange curly hair. The little puppet sighed in relief after looking around. Then he took out his right eye and replaced it with a white rose. Finally, he took out a small mirror and nodded with satisfaction. Xue Kaijing, the youngest daughter that teacher Liu Zhen has just created. I just don't know why she likes to put a flower on her right eye, because the teacher doesn't like supernormal dressing, so she looks in front of the teacher. Everything went up normally, but the teacher changed his eyes to flowers as soon as the teacher was away. Rose Crystal introduced in a low voice. "Okay, now do you know what you are doing this time?" Ryan asked the dolls. "I know." Mercury Lamp was chosen as the elder sister to answer. "Master Father, let us listen to your order to kill the target you instructed. You only need to order to point out the target. This kind of thing is not difficult for us." Listening to the Mercury Lamp's words in a very normal tone, Ryan realized that these Rose girls were not like humans. In their eyes, as long as they don't know the person, they are no different from other creatures. Perhaps killing them is like killing chickens. "Okay, let's start now." After discovering that no pre-war mobilization was needed, Ryan ordered the departure. But in order to conceal his identity, he felt that he still used the ability of the Faceless to change his appearance. In order not to be identified, he decided to find someone who does not exist in this world as a template defamation. After changing into the set of Valeria's steel armor and wearing a meteorite amulet that could save one life, everyone came to the hall where the captive confessed. At the end of the hall there is a fireplace that can only lead to the designated place. The captive ran from the family castle through the fireplace before. "Wait a minute, let me change my face first." Ryan only discovered a bad thing at this critical time. He had not collected other people's hair before, and it is a bit too inappropriate to go to other worlds to find hair before this war. "Brother, I have a solution here." Rose Crystal pulled out a long black hair from her small bag. "This was the last time you registered a nobleman in the world of the Song of Ice and Fire. That nobleman stayed with me." "Book seal aristocracy?" "I seem to have only sealed a younger daughter of Mormon's house." Thinking of him here, he came down in sweat, but looked at the little puppets who were watching him with urged eyes. Ryan, who had a warrior experience, knew that at this time, he could only stick on his head. So in Hermione's startled eyes, Ryan put the hair in her mouth. Then in front of her, she became a 7 or 8-year-old girl. www.mtlnovel.com And the armor of her body also became smaller under the influence of magic. "Okay, let's go." "Quick Senshai, when you get there, you can directly control all the living things you see." Ryan forced the discomfort to arrange the work plan in the little girl's voice. Sepesh Castle. After making all the plans, Ryan asked the puppets to hug themselves, and then read the place in the captive confession with the puppet full. The moment he left, he heard Hermione shouting hard, "Good luck, Abraham, you're so frivolous." In the basement kitchen of Sepesh Castle, a guy with a face that looks nothing much like a vampire opened his mouth and cursed when he heard the fireplace, but he still the huge rat hand that was summoned by Cukes in stone was tightly tied without saying anything. Apart from him, the remaining dozens of guys in the kitchen also received the same treatment. Now the kitchen has become almost like the woods. A huge rat ant stands in the kitchen, a dozen green cocoons hang down from the rat ant like fish on the fishing line. Successfully cleared, you can now confirm that no one has found us here. However, the magic detection system here will fully detect the castle every hour, and it is still 47 minutes before the next detection. Xue Kaijing's cold voice came. Unlike other dolls, she has the ability to move away from her body and act in a spiritual state. Just now she relied on this ability to detect her surroundings clearly. The drawing level of the vampire's overall magic circle is far less than that of the wizard, and their vigilance circle is basically transparent to the little puppets who have a part of Liu Zhen's knowledge. "Now collect information, and we will start after collecting it," Lane ordered, and the puppets were busy immediately. Chapter 319. Sneak into. After using Soul Search and a lot of seemingly injustice spells, Ryan successfully got the latest information from this group of people. This week is the annual time for the vampire family Zepesh family to report work. No matter where the family members are usually, this week they have to bring a full year of harvest back to the family castle to report work. Naturally, all kinds of parties and banquets are indispensable at this time. And Ryan, they were kidnapped as precious ingredients at the banquet. "How is the defense here?" Lane asked. "No." Rose Crystal, who opened the channel of mind with Ryan, immediately stopped after knowing Ryan's idea. The fat man's small nuclear bomb cannot guarantee the killing of all enemies, and the big guy in Megaton Town has a serious excess of power. The defensive magic of the castle itself is not so strong. Once it breaks through the magic defense, it is estimated that it can directly trigger the dead hand system of the great power. "Okay, Let's go to the magic control center of the castle first. It seems that this time we can only solve the problem with traditional methods. Most of the people working in the confirmation kitchen are not blood races, but only some hags who have no warning magic on their bodies. Humans who adore vampires. Only the fat guy is a vampire. Ryan executed these hags who feed on humans, leaving only one life of the vampire to avoid triggering the alarm system. Out of the kitchen door is a passage for the servants to pass, and the puppets easily cleared out all the haggy people encountered on the road. In front of a long spiral staircase, the whole team was divided into two teams. One of the teams was headed by Canary, with Gui Xingxi and Xguaqi Jing. Their task is to occupy the castle's magic control hub on the second floor and change the castle's magic defense system to use it to completely close the castle. Others rushed to the conference hall under the leadership of Ryan. When the castle's defense magic changed, it immediately attacked the vampire's center with the help of chaos. The conference hall is on the second floor of the castle, and there are many vampires patrolling along the way. According to the prisoner's confession, there are more than 80 members of the Zepesh family, in addition to more than 100 blood puppets. On the way to the second floor, Ryan met a big dog whose eyes were like red crystals and squinted there. This was the blood puppet said by the captive. Blood puppets are unique creatures of the vampire family. They will transform some creatures with magical bloodlines into their own blood magic. Then you can get blood puppets who are completely loyal to them. These blood puppets retain their original magical abilities, and at the same time, because of the transformation of vampires, they have obtained a stronger dark affinity and vitality. Not only that, the master of the blood puppet can fully control his puppet. Once there is any strange master, you can know it at the first time. In short, this is a tough opponent. The dog in front of him is the same as the three-headed dog of Hagrid's first grade, and he is a guy with the blood of the three-headed hell, but this bloodline is far less than the one seen by the first grade. This can be seen from only two heads around his neck. According to the knowledge found by Ryan at the time, he easily wrapped himself with shadow magic to isolate the taste of a human body, and at the same time used the magic of life magic to convert his life glow. After doing everything, he quietly walked in front of the big dog while he was snoring there. He didn't disturb the big dog who captured the outside information by sniffing the smell and observing the soul. After passing the big dog in a precarious manner, the rest of the road was smooth. Because the vampire elders don't want the vampires below to intervene in their meetings, other vampires are distributed in their own rooms or playrooms. There was no one empty in the corridor, and the only automatic defense magic circle was easily solved by Ryan using alchemy. This is not because of the carelessness of this group of vampires, but because the castle of Zepesh itself is a secret place where hidden magic is released. Few people know the castle except the vampires of their own race. Even those who enter as ingredients are carefully selected to ensure that they cannot leave here alive. In this case, it is normal for the castle's internal defenses to relax slightly. Think about it, even if it is normal, not many people like to install monitors or traps in their homes. The same is true of vampires, and they don't want to install too many magic arrays in their residences. The only thing they missed was that when Batty Jr. traded with them, he chose a wizard who was far more powerful than a normal wizard. But this should not be blamed. Under normal circumstances, who would think of a 14-year-old hemp wizard with so many plugins? It wasn't until Ryan and they walked to the door of the conference hall that they saw two guards standing there, and Liu Zhen, who was holding the mercury lamp in their hands, showed them that the gold plate of their investigation showed that the two vampires were very powerful, and they were not objects that could quickly subdue. Once the guards cannot be quickly subdued, the vampire elders in the conference hall will be alerted as soon as possible. It seemed that they could only wait for the news from Canary, and hid around the corner thinking. Fortunately, the waiting time was not long. After 3 minutes, Kang Xingxi nodded to Ryan to signal that her sisters had controlled the central control room and were ready to move. Ryan immediately distributed weapons to the puppets, and then began to count down 5 numbers simultaneously with another group of people. Action! Ryan felt the castle shake slightly after the 5 numbers were counted, and the magic lights on the walls began to flash. At the same time Kang Xingxi confirmed that the castle's protective cover has been successfully modified. Lane sprang out like an arrow, and just saw 2 vampire guards opening the door trying to notify the elders inside of what had happened. Taking advantage of this opportunity they threw their hands into the door. When asked, the guard tried to intercept the flying objects, but these things were enchanted with magic, and they evaded them into the conference hall very lightly. Boom! A huge explosion sound came from the conference hall. The power of this explosion was not small. The 2 guards were directly shot by the airflow from the door to the opposite wall. www.mplnovel.com scrap. They screamed screamingly, and it seemed that there were fragments of the cluster grenades just dropped in the fragments that hit them. These grenades are some experimental items, which Ryan prepared for the alien. The core of every 7-inch-1 cluster grenade thrown out just now is the explosive cherry jam he made with alchemy, and there is a cover on the outside. Each jacket is filled with Valeria steel balls, dragon crystal beads and concentrated sunlight crystal beads. It was the light power of these things that made the 2 guards feel painful. There is no need to show mercy after you start, and these vampires that feed on humans should not live in this world. Soon the two vampire guards lay completely still, imbued with petals, crystals and black feathers. It's a terrible barrage storm. Ryan thought about the scene where two sunstones made of sunlight crystals were pulled from the bracelet, and after he read a spell, he threw it into the conference hall, and then used the instant light. One of the screams in the conference hall rolled in. There were originally 13 vampire Presbyterian members in the conference hall, but after 2 rounds of attack, only the patriarch sitting in the middle and the big elder on his right survived. Although the elder vampire survived, he was dying. While he was facing the sun and covering his eyes, the rose crystal flew into a purple shadow. Although the elders also heard the movement at this time, the injuries on his body made him unable to do any evasive action. As a result, Rose Crystal used a crystal sword as a sword. Now, there was only the vampire patriarch who had wrapped himself in a blood cocoon. Ryan watched the blood cocoon nervously for the next move. Chapter 320, Blame. The grandeur and glory of the past no longer exist in the conference hall of the Seps family castle, one of the major shareholders of the magic black market in Eastern Europe. The chandelier on the roof hit the table, breaking the gorgeous gold inlaid table directly from the middle. And the vampire elders who usually sit on the beautiful Rococo-style high-back chairs are also scattered in the red and black tone of the hall in the form of parts. However, in the middle of a chaotic lobby, a 7 or 8-year-old girl stood side by side with a 90 centimeters tall doll, nervously looking at a blood cocoon in front of her. Soon, Ryan disguised as a girl took out a handful of jade charms from her bag and spread it. When Yufu touched the blood cocoon, countless electric lights exploded to form an electric dragon tightly entangled the blood cocoon, and a screaming sound was made where the two touched. In the piercing sound, the blood cocoon had to spray a lot of blood mist to neutralize the electric dragon that entangled it. This process also caused huge losses to the blood cocoon itself. Ryan saw the color of the blood cocoon faded to the naked eye, and finally even became as translucent as the blood cocoon. There was a black figure inside. It seemed to work, and as soon as Ryan wanted to continue, he saw the blood cocoon swell violently. He subconsciously hid behind Rose Crystal behind a half-human bronze statue. Sure enough, the blood cocoon exploded with a slam, the slaps of glass-like fragments flying all over the room, and even fragments scoring several deep and shallow marks on the bronze statue. Along with the debris in the sky, a red and black smoke flew over Ryan, and then slammed into the Vajra symbol he placed in front of him. The Vajra breaks in response, and Ryan relies on his armor to give up the defense and fights with his sword. But when the sword was in the mist, he felt that his sword seemed to be stuck in a mass of cotton with no strength. Fortunately, the magic flame attached after the sword was out of the sheath had some damage to the mist. Those who tried to entangle the sword, the power was burned in flames. At the same time, the crystal sword of Rose Crystal cut off a mist. The mist turned into a blood-red bat after landing, and she was nailed to the ground with crystal spines just before flying away. Naturally, it wasn't just Ryan who had hit the fog in this type of attack. At the moment it broke the magical barrier formed by the Vajra rune. A claw stretched straight from the top to the bottom of Ryan's chest. Ryan was grabbed a sturdy hand just to avoid the beginning. But Valeria steel is indeed a very good quality magic metal. The claw caught 5 Martians on the surface of the scale armor, but no traces were left. Ryan just took a few steps backwards with this powerful shock. At the same time, a blood-red beam emerged from the mist and hit the Rose Crystal. But after the puppet checked himself, he found nothing wrong. After the fog failed to hit, he immediately stood on the seat and became a middle-aged man with white hair and white hair. Although he tried hard to maintain his image, a scratch on his chest penetrated with a place on his abdomen. The injury ruined his efforts. "What the are you?" The middle-aged man stared at Ryan with blood-red eyes. "Now it's too late for you to give up. Although I don't know how that dwarf resisted my flesh and blood withering magic, but I know that if you fight, you will all die soon." Before he had finished speaking, he saw him rushing into the mist again. Sure enough, he just spoke to let Ryan relax their vigilance, but Ryan also got a preparation time. The left hand behind him finally squeezed the casting gesture, and a golden wall of fire suddenly appeared in front of him. The mist formed by the middle-aged man hit the firewall. There was a screaming in the fog, and the whole fog was violent. Ryan took the opportunity to wave his hands in the air to draw one mysterious rune after another. Under his guidance, the firewall turned into a net of fire, and then wrapped up the mist. The mist hung on the fire net and rushed left and right, but it could not escape the fire net anyway. Even because of the magic of light on the fire net, it is impossible to restore human form. Ryan also found that the magic of vampires is very special compared to the magic of human wizards, and even strange, if it is very difficult to deal with without preparation. Of course, if you have the power of targeting, it is easier to deal with them than with wizards of the same level, because their power is too single. Just like the flesh and blood of the Rose Crystal that was hit just now, it may cause fatal damage to any flesh and blood creatures. Alchemist puppets naturally do useless work. This is also the case now. The vampire patriarch's combat power is stronger than Ryan because of the accumulation of time. However, He was very weak after being covered by the net of bright flames exhibited by Ryan to restrain the vampire in the atomized state, and he was very weak and could not even break free. Feeling the misty struggle getting smaller and smaller, Ryan slammed his open right hand into a fist. The fire net also shrank immediately. Finally, the black and red mist trapped inside was compressed to the size of a ping-pong ball, and then fell to the ground with a bang. At this time, the 5 remaining gems formed by the sunlight on the bracelet on Ryan's hand were all consumed, leaving only 7 empty grooves. Rose Crystal immediately flew over and picked up the burning ball with both hands and raised it to her chest and closed her eyes. A few seconds later, purple light appeared on her hand. When the light disappeared, a purple crystal cluster appeared in her hand, and the flaming ball was sealed in the purple crystal and burned quietly. Nice. Rose Crystal turned her head and gave a smile to Ryan after her seal was sealed. Then holding this crystal cluster and handing it to Ryan, Ryan pulled out the portable silver obsidian altar from the bag, and then activated the altar to start reading the memory of the vampire patriarch. www.mplnovel.com. Soon the mist in the crystal was quickly consumed, accompanied by a loud sound thoroughly screamed from the soul. This method of reading memory is achieved by consuming the target's soul, and after the vampire soul is exhausted, Ryan also gets what he wants. With the help of the rose crystal that shared his soul, he found the most important memory, the memory of the Black Wizard who sold himself as an ingredient to the vampire, in addition to a large number of materials that the Black Wizard ordered. Because the Black Wizard's business is the largest business of the family in the past 2 decades, the vampire as the patriarch personally completed the business and was impressed by the matter. The southern tip of the island of Oster on the Faroe Islands. Ryan observed the contents of his memory and finally found the delivery address of the shipment. A brief look at the contents of the medicine. He was surprised to find that some of these materials are special, which are the raw materials for the medicine used by early wizards to make up for the lack of limbs. The early spells and potions were not as developed as they are now. Once people lost their limbs, they used their own blood to mix the potions to make the missing limbs and stitch them together. However, after the invention of a more convenient method, this complex medicine was slowly lost. Fat Reborn. Ryan suddenly remembered the scene where Voldemort came out of the movie he watched that year, and then combined with Harry's disappearance, he finally clarified what happened. Damn, this change is a bit too big. Ryan felt he had to save Harry. At least for him, Harry is now the best shield. If there is no Harry, the next war may be more troublesome. And he also wanted to find out exactly what level of Voldemort was through close contact with Voldemort. Chapter 321. Do the same thing. Grella, gurgling. As the sound of stepping on the debris reached the hallway, the 2 gangs of people who were huddled together in the hallway subconsciously looked in the direction of the conference hall. In the battle just now, it was clear that the vampire had suffered a loss. 50 or 60 blood puppets that had been completely scrapped were stacked on top of the corridor, and there were dozens of corpses of vampires in between. These things even blocked most of the corridor. Whether it is a vampire or a puppet, most of the guys that are lying here are densely covered with black feathers or colorful petals. But there are a few that have been cut into pieces, which should be Kang Xingxi's handwriting. For the vampires, it was blood mold today. They were taking advantage of this party to eat, drink, and have fun in this absolutely safe castle. I never thought that some guys like large dolls suddenly rushed over to kill, and unexpectedly several vampires were killed in their houses without any preparation. When the vampires organized together with the blood puppets to attack the conference hall and tried to meet the elders, they found that these large dolls were not only powerful but also extremely ruthless. As part of the underground black market in Eastern Europe, these vampires are not without practical experience. But in the face of these killing dolls with no expression and no emotion, there was a long-lost fear in their hearts. When Ryan walked out of the meeting room, the morale of the vampire side collapsed completely. Some vampires launched suicide charges like blood puppets hysterically, and were soon wiped out. Other vampires were rushing around in the castle, trying to escape their lives. However, because the castle's magic defense system was modified, they could not escape the castle at all. Most of these vampires do not have the ability to transform into blood mist. It was very easy to be completely wiped out by the group of small dolls and canaries that Ryan brought with him. It was also a hard work to search out these guys from such a large castle. Life magic and Xur Kaijing's spiritual state played a great role in the search. When the last vampire hiding on the beam of the living room on the top floor was attacked by canary sonic waves and exploded into flesh fireworks, they completely cleaned the castle. It doesn't seem to be difficult. Did my brother call us out so nervously? The mercury lamp said with a slightly arrogant voice. No, it's just that we naturally restrain these vampires. The canary cut off the mercury lamp. The agile skills of the vampires, the vigorous vitality, and the spiritual manipulation and cursing magic specifically for the flesh and body are great for each wizard. But these all become disadvantages in front of us. So this is their failure, the reason for being so fast. You must not be proud of it. Ryan found it interesting to listen to the battle summary of the little puppets. At least they summed up the experience from the experiences they have made their souls more and more complete and closer to humans. And this is where the Rose Girls are strong. after leaving the rose crystal that shared with his own soul. He took the puppets to clean up the loot in the Pesh family castle and helped move to the world of the Song of Ice and Fire. Lane opened the fireplace in the castle and went to the place where Harry might be kidnapped, that is, the place where a large number of herbs were delivered, the southern end of the island of Vista in the Faroe Islands. But before leaving, he asked Mercury Lamp and True Red to ask for something as his secret weapon. After all, it is likely to face Voldemort this time. It is always good to prepare some big tricks for the bottom of the tank. After everything was ready, the flames flashed over, and Ryan appeared in a tattered fireplace. This fireplace was installed in a very small farmhouse, but this farmhouse has been abandoned for a long time, and even the roof and beams have disappeared. There are only 4 rough walls with several holes, probably because there are not many people in this place. The people who came here looked very rough when cleaning up the traces. Ryan easily used magic to find traces of people who had walked before. He pulled out 2 daggers from his waist, one of which was called a shadow, and was obtained after a shadow was killed in the world of Song of Ice and Fire. The wizard who ran to him told him that it was the magic weapon from Xia. Holding the weapon is conducive to the release of shadow magic. The other is called Flame, which is the imitation of Valeria. Just after harvesting this dagger called Shadow, it can be used to release the magic of fire and light, which is also Ryan's recent triumph. It's just that Rose Crystal has always been pleased with the fire of this dagger, and it can be seen that Soul Unicom occasionally has some things that make people cry and laugh. It's just that for an adolescent male, what is a dagger is like a dagger in the hands of a girl about 8 years old, but I can't care about it at this time. Ryan followed the traces with 2 daggers. Go on. After walking through a wood that was not very large, Lane heard the sound of waves in the distance. Soon the light of the fire in the forest clearing caught his attention. After bypassing a big tree, he saw a huge stone-dry crucible placed on the fire through the gap in the tree at a distance from the open space, and there was a wretched figure kneeling there. The crucible was filled with red medicine, and a strong light radiated outwards to illuminate the whole open space. With the light coming out of the pot, Ryan saw a stump not far from the pot, tied with the previously missing Harry. There was a yellow-haired middle-aged man with a dagger beside Harry who seemed to be slashing Harry. This scene made Ryan know what he was facing at once, so he immediately took a clay pot filled with wildfire from the waste bag and hit the figure kneeling on the pot. Voldemort looked more cautious than he thought, and a magical barrier was immediately raised by his pot to stop the wildfire from burning. At the same time a cold voice came from the pot, "Now finish the ceremony quickly, hurry." Is this Voldemort? While Ryan was thinking about it, he saw the middle-aged man with yellow hair holding a dagger and ran straight to Harry. He gave a shadow blade and untied the rope that bound Harry. Voldemort's shout just revealed that the ceremony was not over, which also meant that he could not get out of the pot temporarily. Ryan took this opportunity to focus on the yellow-haired middle-aged man. Just when he was planning to take further action to rescue Harry, the middle-aged man hugged Harry directly and moved to Harry's face. www.mplnovel.com. The last step was not the blood of the enemy. How could this be kissed directly anymore? Ryan stood a little dumbfounded in the woods, but this is not a time for delusions because the two are entangled tightly. In order to avoid accidentally hurting Ryan, he can only use the shadow blade to cut off the middle-aged man who is fighting me with Harry. When you lift your legs. Harry was at a distance from the crucible, and Ryan thought he had successfully prevented the ritual. The result was when Ryan ran towards Harry, the middle-aged man pulled down the collar that was blinded on Harry's face and put his mouth together again. He didn't know what was done on Harry's face and raised his head to the crucible. Because the surrounding sky had darkened, Ryan did not see what the man had done. It was not until the intermittent spell came that he was surprised to find that the spell was almost completed. When did he put Harry's blood in? Ryan was depressed and found that he didn't know what the middle-aged man was crazy, and he looked up sharply after reading the spell. Lion took advantage of this opportunity to cut a shadow blade on his neck, and his head fell. I hope that Harry will not be psychologically shadowed by this scene. Ryan thought of running to Harry's side, and then said in the voice of the little girl, "You, follow me to escape quickly." "Are you run? Don't you run and wait to die at this time?" Lean pulled Harry up suddenly. Fortunately, the potion in the stone crucible was reacting violently and the white mist successfully concealed the whereabouts of the two people. "Hurry up and find a place to hide." "I'll drag the guy first." Ryan waved his dagger and released several shadow blades, but they were all blocked by the white mist. Finally a figure floated from the pot. It seemed that Voldemort had successfully returned. Chapter 322. Face. Soup is a very common food. Since humans cook food with fire, soup has become a frequent visitor on various tables. The reason why it is so common is that it can be rich and frugal, and people who have money can drink soup boiled with high-grade materials such as yak and wing belly. When it is really poor, you can also dig some wild vegetable stew to satisfy the hunger. And now in front of Ryan is a pot of extremely precious soup that cannot be drunk, soup made with a dark devil. According to nutritionists, no matter how hard the soup is, the main nutrients in the soup are concentrated on the ingredients. For example, the nutrition of the hen soup is mainly in the hen. The Dark Lord soup is the same, even more exaggerated than ordinary soup because of the material. The half-dead black devil stewed in the soup and instead absorbed the nutrients in the soup to repair the body damage, and finally came out by himself. But because one of his 2 running dogs was burnt into coke by wildfire, the other was separated. So Voldemort could only walk out of the pot in an extremely indecent pose, and then waved at the 2 bodies. Immediately, the wizard robe and the 3 wands on their body flew directly into Voldemort's hands. After receiving the wand, Voldemort gave a glance and shouted, because his own purple shirt wand was placed on the little dwarf Peter, but the wildfire just burned Peter's wand and his own wand into coke. How can this not make him angry? At this time, Ryan saw that the white mist that had filled the open space had disappeared, so he quickly waved 2 daggers to release the magic. For a while, a large number of energy composed of flames and shadows flew directly to Voldemort, who was still in the sky. Who are you? Why should you be against me? Voldemort deserves to be the dark devil that upsets the European magic world. After seeing the magic like raindrops, he easily changed from the air into a huge silver shield in front of him. Then he questioned the direction in which the magic fired. You thought you could kill me, but in fact, these are easy for me to deal with. Ha! Caught you speaking of this. Voldemort slammed his wand in the direction of the magic. Even if he didn't use the small batty wand, it was still extremely powerful. Ryan had felt wrong and jumped to another tree before the spell came over. But after seeing the big tree that was hit by a thick man, he was interrupted directly from the middle under Voldemort's death spell. Swallowed. It seems that the protracted war will never work, even if he hangs himself. Voldemort, the old man with more than 1 armor, is more experienced and powerful. Now this stalemate is purely based on the raid, but Voldemort slowly comes to control himself. This advantage will soon disappear in the future. Thinking of Ryan's decision to open up directly, of course, he knew that he couldn't kill Voldemort even if he opened up. However, it shouldn't be a problem to force Voldemort, who just came out of the pot and took a wand that was not easy. Ryan fired a wave of cursed Voldemort blocks again and quickly shifted his position. Then he took out what he had just prepared from his pocket, 2 full test tubes, each with an ounce in it. Liquid. These liquids are all metallic in color, except that the liquid in one test tube is red and the other is black. This time it's bloody. Ryan muttered and pulled out the stopper. The liquid in the 2 test tubes automatically flows to the pair of daggers in Ryan's hand. The magic is that these liquids seem to have been changing in volume, even if such a large test tube is filled with liquid. But the liquid comes out on the blade of the dagger, wrapped in a thin layer. Hopefully the mercury lamp and the power of true red are really useful. Thinking of here, Ryan waved 2 daggers at the same time to draw a mysterious trajectory in the air, and at the same time he recited the mantra in advanced Valyria. The magic that Ryan uses now is actually closer to divine than so-called magic. The liquid in the test tube used to smear the dagger was sky silver, which is the power of belief. It's just that Ryan just asked True Red and Mercury lamps to put their own markers in a test tube, a black feather and a blood red rose petal. After adding this kind of marker, Tannian transformed into the power of the 2 gods they occupy in the world of Song of Ice and Fire. This will release the power of gods from another world in this world. As Ryan chanted, the 2 daggers began to change slowly. The shadow was shrouded in layers of black mist, and even a slight green glow emerged. The flame became brighter, and finally turned into a dazzling white, like a little sun. Voldemort naturally saw these changes, but it may be because Ryan's body now has a strong confusing effect, so Voldemort only played a life-spelling spell against Ryan, but all the life-spelling spells he played were missed and left in the woods. A lot of broken trees. This is not because Voldemort's level is not good, but that he has never seen a wizard who moves so fast to lane like this in the battle he has encountered before. Even the werewolves who turned into wolves couldn't help it. Finally, Ryan's magic was ready. Although this process took less than 3 minutes, under Voldemort's attack, Ryan felt as if hours had passed. Voldemort did not adapt well to Ryan's opponents. However, his powerful strength and rich experience still found Ryan's habits in a short time. Ryan felt that if Voldemort was given another 3 or 5 minutes, he should completely adapt to his style of play. At that point, he could only find a way to escape. God's punishment. Ryan pointed 2 daggers at Voldemort and pronounced the last spell in Valyria. www.mplnovel.com. At the same time, layers of pressure appeared in the surrounding space, making him unable to escape through phantom visualization or smoke reduction. I have conquered death. Voldemort shouted Ryan's slogan that he felt very second, while waving his wand and laying a layer of barriers in front of his body. Ryan was amazed by the speed of his hand. Voldemort's dangerous body transformations before him not only changed his affinity with magic, but also strengthened his physical body. Maybe he can even fight the giant now. Watching Voldemort's hand pull after an after image, Ryan guessed on the side. Because of the difference in the world, even the magic released by burning sky silver is much less powerful than the real magic. However, since it is a divine art, the power of the world rules contained in it can bring powerful power even with only a trace. The barriers shattered one by one under the impact of the light beam, and Voldemort could not see a spit of black blood. The blood formed a black shield under his command. The shield was pure black, as if absorbing all the light around. After 2 beams of light hit it, they froze directly. Huh? Is this an understanding of the rules? Ryan, looking at the shield in front of the beam of light, thought that he reacted after struggling several times. It turns out that the world's top wizards have also touched the power of the rules. Although Ryan only burns sky silver, leading this attack is also a great pressure on the soul. After feeling deadlocked for tens of seconds, he felt a sense of weakness, so after chanting a spell, the 2 daggers came out and turned into 2 light spots and directly hit Voldemort's black shield. Chapter 323, Ending. Lion's 2 daggers hit the shield in front of Voldemort, and then exploded at the same time. Click, click, click. With the scattered black mist and white light, the unknown black shield began to show cracks, accompanied by a sound like glass breaking. Slap. The shield finally reached its limit, and it suddenly shattered into sky fragments and turned into nothingness. Voldemort behind the shield seemed to be hit hard as well, and blood bleed from the corners of his mouth, and the whole person took 3 or 4 steps back. You can't be a wizard, what the are you? Voldemort looked at the girl in the woods with his snake eyes. This scene was quite oppressive, but a gust of wind drove him to wear only a robe. Voldemort became extremely spicy. No matter what you are, you have to die here today. Seeing the disgust in Ryan's eyes, Voldemort was even more angry. But when he just lifted his wand tone, he suddenly panicked. No, no, it shouldn't be like this. Voldemort stared at his open palm with wide eyes. Ryan, who had been running eagle eyes, clearly saw his pale, bloodless hands covered with cracks like spider webs. Lifting the arm can see that these cracks have spread to the forearm, and slowly and firmly spread to other places. Isn't this happening in the original text? Ryan thought that Voldemort's condition was a bit strange, but he would not give up such a good opportunity. Soon he quickly shot a few spells at Voldemort, but the power was much smaller when he lost the cast item, and he was easily blocked by Voldemort. But Voldemort also became weak due to changes in his body and was easily avoided by Ryan. I'll be back when I solve my problems. Voldemort left the phantom directly after taking the next harsh word. But before leaving, he kept staring at Ryan with snake-like eyes, as if to remember him. This is running? Ryan looked at Voldemort's leaving with a look of composure. He thought that such a big boss would fight until the last moment. But think about Voldemort as a generation of owls. It certainly cannot be that kind of stunt personality. Think about what he did when he got a Hufflepuff Gold Cup, and know that he is a man who can bend and stretch. Therefore, it is understandable that Voldemort ran directly in this situation of unknown body problems. Now that Lord Voldemort is gone, Ryan is ready to leave. As he walked deep into the woods, a man suddenly jumped out of the rock. Ryan almost hit him with a blade of shadow, but fortunately he saw that it was Harry in time. I have to say that Harry is a standard Gryffindor. He just so dared him to hide so close to the battlefield. What are you going to do? Ryan asked Harry with a Valyria steel axe. After the 2 daggers were consumed, he found that the only weapon he now fits in is the axe. Like swords, and swords are too long and too big for this body now. I thank you for saving me. Can you tell me your name? Harry said a little nervously. In particular, Ryan raised his axe to the height of his chest at this time, making his voice tremble even more when he spoke. Mormon, you can call me Lyanna Mormon. Ryan reported the name of the face. Anyway, the vassal should be responsible for the lord. I'm still anxious to clean up a vampire castle. You'd better wait for rescue here. There is a fireplace behind the dirt in the front that leads to the vampire castle. I suggest you go in after your assistance comes. After talking about Ryan, Harry left and hurriedly left the woods, thinking that it would not take long for Harry to get support. He must quickly clear some traces and put this matter to an end. Hurrying back to the Seps family castle, Lane found that the puppets had cleaned up the entire castle, including the destroyed furniture and chandeliers, and even the solid wood floor was pried off. Clay pots with rough appearance are placed in many places. A total of 19 secret rooms have been cleaned up, and all the contents are now sent to the warehouse of that world. We have taken away all the worthwhile things in this castle. Rose Crystal looked proudly at Ryan say, these puppet masters of magic and alchemy do seem to have talent in collecting loot. Going down to the castle hall. The original grand hall was already in a mess. The mahogany decorative board was pried away, and the sculptures and plants on the wrought iron shelves that were placed here were packed away. Even the gold before the wall was brilliant. The murals became patchy, because it was discovered that the murals used gold powder made of real gold, so the puppets removed all the gold powder from the murals, and Ryan saw True Red holding a big pot that was about the size of her, filled with a bottle of gold powder. This is the last batch of things, and you let us engrave the words we carve in a storage room in the basement, and the documents are all tucked into the big iron box and thrown in, which can definitely be seen by people behind. Look, as Ryan stared at herself, she was explaining to Ryan the True Red opening the space door through the rose crystal. The killed vampires and blood puppets piled up in the center of the hall. Those who were in good condition and had not been smashed had already been collected as experimental materials for future research. Lane could see a dozen crocks filled with wildfire under the corpse, ready for finishing work at any time. Lane thought about it, picked up the debris of the size of 2 blood puppets and a vampire, put them in several large black bags and put them into the space, then signaled that the puppets should retreat. The little puppets jumped into the space door one by one with a smile. On the other side of the space door is the basement under the World Rose Crystal Temple of the Song of Ice and Fire. Ryan promised that these little puppets who came to help could take away the loot they wanted, ascended the stairs and finally glanced at the disorganized hall. Then Ryan turned to the fireplace on the second floor and returned to the place where he had been. www.mtlnovel.com. Less than 10 seconds after he left, the magic circle painted on a clay pot in the hall exploded aflame and ignited the wildfire. The green flame quickly engulfed everything in the castle. With an explosion, half of the castle tower flew into the sky. Not to mention the current chaos on the Seps family castle, Ryan just laid the seal on the fireplace when he returned to the underground cell, and when he looked back, he found that the vampire he had captured was dead and there was a huge neck hole. Hermione sat ugly on the other side of the room against the wall. Before Ryan finished, Xiao King explained what had just happened. Xiao King also received the news when Ryan started, and when it was about to kill the vampire, Hermione suddenly proposed to let her do it. Obviously, the big hole in the neck of the vampire is Hermione's masterpiece. From the wound, it can be seen that the man who started is very fashionable. At least 10 knives were stabbed to achieve the intended purpose. The vampire was not at all peaceful when he left. But think about the Muzz tragically dying in the hands of this vampire. This is also a kind of retribution. Can you tell me why you did this? Ryan asked when he opened the space bag around his waist and took out a thermos pot and poured a cup of hot tea to Hermione. Because Hermione was supposed to be very kind in Ryan's impression, he couldn't really link Hermione to the stabbing of a dozen knives on a vampire's throat with a dagger. The next time I face the danger again, I don't want you to be alone after drinking a few sips of tea, Hermione said in a weak tone. Thank you. Ryan had many words to say at this time, but in the end it only turned into a somewhat pale thank you. But he vowed that he would remember what happened today. Chapter 324, Report 1 Paragraph. After roughly confessing to Hermione, Ryan used life magic to appease Hermione's spirit. Hermione, who watched her fall asleep under the magic, stretched her eyebrows, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and began to arrange the scene as planned. Ryan first poured out the wreckage he had prepared from the space door, and then put the wreckage together as before. Finally, the vampire corpse in front of me was burned into ash with the simple sunlight. Looking at the 2 piles of human-shaped ash and the 2 strange blood puppets that turned into nothing weird ash, Ryan nodded in satisfaction. This was almost the same as the arrangement. It wasn't until Ryan thought that everything had changed, and then he changed the clothes to the one he wore when he came. Be sure to prepare your hair next time, Ryan warned himself while walking next to Hermione and sitting down next to her. Finally, he lifted the seal on the fireplace when he first came over and restored the function of the fireplace. 5 or 6 hours later, when Hermione woke up from a deep sleep, there was another spark in the fireplace. Ryan raised his wand and stood up, pointing it in the direction of the fireplace, and Hermione did the same. While asking, Ryan also threw a crystal of sunlight, and the intense light instantly enveloped the entire space. Fortunately, this time it was indeed a rescuer, and it was just immune to this strong light attack. Boy, it's great. Ryan's hoarse voice made him recognize Moody, a professor of black magic defense. But Ryan still pointed at him with his wand. Please prove that you are indeed Professor Moody. Moody was not angry, but said with a smile. As I said in your first lesson, we need to be vigilant at all times. It's nice to see you listen to me. After he finished looking at the piles of ashes on the ground, he nodded. Don't you really think about going to Aurora after graduation? At least 2 adult vampires and 2 blood puppets are not something that average minor wizards can handle. It's just luck. Some of the alchemy products on my body can restrain these dark creatures. After Ryan said they were brought to the table by Moody's followers. After a strong squeeze, Ryan and Hermione were taken by Moody in front of Hogwarts' cast iron gate. Within a few minutes, they had appeared in the principal's office with hot black tea. Because Moody had talked about something before, Dumbledore asked the 2 people directly what happened to them before they were kidnapped. Ryan told Dumbledore according to the agreed content that the 2 used the underground cell after they were caught. Some special magic weapons escaped, and then used the power of the sun to kill the vampires who tried to kidnap them. Later, a monster was rushed out of the fireplace, and then a combination of a monster and a vampire was rushed out, but they were all destroyed by Lane with the help of alchemy props and magic. The strange thing is that after solving these monsters, there are no other enemies coming out. After discovering that the fireplace was leading to a fixed location, the 2 decided to take turns to rest and stand by, and Moody came to pick them up. So, Mr. Liang, how do you know that the box is defective? Dumbledore asked, crossing his hands on the table after they had finished telling the story. Because the registration of Harry this year is full of problems, it makes me feel that something bad is going to happen. So this year one have kept the highest vigilance. When I was on Hogsmeade Street the girl's eyes were a bit dull, and after I discovered it, I thought of the soul-draining curse taught by Professor Moody. So I was worried that the curse would release defensive magic on both of us, but I didn't expect it to be a door key," Lane said with regret. "You are doing very well in this matter. No wonder Professor Moody just praised you just now." Dumbledore nodded and said, "The magic item you just said is the bracelet you have in your hand." "Yes," Ryan nodded. "It's a pity that all the sunstones above have been completely consumed this time, which is equivalent to losing hundreds of gallons at a time. I don't want to think that this consumption is worth a life. It's already nice for young people to have such a mentality as you." Professor Dumbledore suddenly smiled and asked seriously, "Can you tell me what the ingredients in the potion you gave Harry before?" "Of course, I don't mean to spy on your secrets, you just need to tell me what the ingredients of the potion are." "Remove cursed unicorn blood, frozen sunlight, dragon blood." Ryan burst out a dozen medicinal materials in one breath. "That's it, Principal Dumbledore. This was told to me by a horseman witch doctor I knew before, and she gave me the unicorn blood." "Yeah, all intelligent creatures have their advantages, but unfortunately many wizards pretend to be invisible." "When I was young," Dumbledore shook his head here. "Forget it. All the past is gone." Ryan looked at Dumbledore and estimated that he thought of being with Grindelwald when he was young. But Dumbledore quickly awakened from the memories, and then looked at Ryan and Hermione and asked seriously, "If I tell you that Voldemort is back, do you believe it?" "I think the mysterious man." Ryan thought it might be that old Deng was preparing to pull the head, and was preparing to answer seriously. As soon as he opened his head, Dumbledore interrupted him. "Ryan, Hermione, just call him Voldemort. Always use the correct name for things. Fear of a name reinforces the fear of the thing itself." "But Professor, there is magic in the name of that person and it will detect the person who calls his name directly." "As the most powerful white wizard you are naturally not afraid. You reads the book www.uukanzu.com. But we are not as powerful as you, and loved ones are people who can't protect themselves by magic." "If he really comes back, I think in this case, neither Hermione nor I can bear the consequences of calling that person's name directly." Ryan directly stood upright on this issue. After Deng Deng, he always felt that Deng Deng asked Harry to call them Voldemort's name in the original book. Especially for people like Hermione whose families are moles, it is equivalent to putting their families in a deadly danger. "I'm sorry, I didn't think about it." Dumbledore apologized proactively. "I can understand your efforts to protect your family." "Thank you. Following your topic just now, I believe that person has come back because I know that Harry is not that kind of nonsense. But I also believe that most people in the magic world will not believe this. Even they will take the initiative to deny this. Isn't it just like the signing of the Munich Agreement?" Hermione also responded and asked at this time. "Yes, British wizards are as reluctant to admit the imminent danger as the British mole before the war, from top to bottom," Lane replied. "Oh? You talk about your thoughts?" Dumbledore asked with great interest. "Originally, when Harry came back today, he planned to go directly to Fudge to inform him of the return of Voldemort, and use the power of the Ministry of Magic to limit it to the maximum. Voldemort's recovery. In his inference, Fudge and the Ministry of Magic should start preparing for war immediately after receiving this information and alert some wizards, so as to restrain the development of Voldemort's forces. However, the two students who did not want to be affected by in this incident put forward another point of view. He now wants to hear what these two Mole-born students want to use the case of the Mole world to illustrate. Chapter 325, On Plan. A magical scene appeared in the office of President Hogwarts. School. Dumbledore leaned on the back of the chair and listened attentively, while two Mole-born wizards were speaking across from him. After Hermione introduced the policy of appeasement between Britain and France before World War II, Dumbledore was in deep contemplation, and it took him a few minutes to remember that there were still two students in his office. "Okay, I think you should have been so tired after experiencing so much today. You should go to bed now." After finishing, Dumbledore got up and took the two to the staircase. At Lane, they walked down the spiral staircase. At that time, I could see Dumbledore returning to the table and thinking seriously. In a corridor without frescoes, Ryan took the ragdoll out of the box. He had planned to get this fooled through, but he didn't expect Dumbledore to control the box at all. As soon as he closed the box, he felt that his hand sank. It seemed that Rose Crystal had placed the space beacons in advance where she was sleeping, and the box came back as soon as it was empty. "Good night." After returning to the common room, Ryan handed the box to Hermione, waved her goodbye, and returned to her dorm. Today is really too busy. He originally planned to count the loot, but he just laid down on the bed, tired and attacked, and Ryan immediately changed his mind, deciding when he would be free to count again. Anyway, those things will not run long legs, and now it is better to sleep well. Early the next morning, after eating, Ryan finally got rid of a large group of classmates who were twittering and curious about what happened yesterday. When I was about to go to class with Hermione, the voice of Professor McGonagall came from behind. "Mr. Liang, Miss Granger, Principal Dumbledore needs to interview you." The two men glanced at each other, and both saw the worry in the other's eyes. Afterwards, he followed Professor McGonagall to the principal's office. Professor McGonagall didn't say anything along the way, but her tight lips and hurried steps showed that it was not a good thing to find two people. "Macarons!" Professor McGonagall shouted to the monster in front of the headmaster's room. and the monster jumped to the side, revealing the staircase that spiraled upward. Pushing open the door decorated with the Sphinx and Eagle head knocker, you can see in the principal's room besides Professor Dumbledore, Professor Harry Potter and Professor Snape. After hearing the sound of the door opening, all three people in the room looked at the place where the door was opened. After seeing them, Snape retreated and left. "Thank you, Milva." Principal Dumbledore nodded at Professor McGonagall and looked at Ryan and Hermione. "The results of your analysis last night were unfortunately all fulfilled. I had asked Fudge out for a half this morning alone hours, but he has refused to admit that Voldemort is back. He also accused me of drawing a conclusion only by listening to a child. He thought that I was determined to create a panic and destroy him and the magical world for the past 13 years. Everything created." "Why would he think so, sir?" Harry asked, somewhat puzzled. "Because he thinks I want to seize power, Harry. Just because I proposed that Voldemort came back. I hope the Ministry of Magic can inform everyone about this news." Ryan felt that Dumbledore's behavior was indeed like seizing power, because this matter was under the management of the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore is only the principal of Hogwarts, and even if he is famous, he should not intervene in the Ministry of Magic belonging to Fudge. But it can also be seen from this matter that Professor Dumbledore was relatively influenced by Grindelwald when he was young, and he can completely ignore other people for the sake of his greater interests. However, Dumbledore proposed a solution to Fudge after the return of Voldemort in the original impression, and after being rejected, he declared that he would part ways with Fudge. Dumbledore was already mild this time. "I just invited Fudge to the office to discuss this matter. After the incident collapsed, I just watched Fudge leave with some anger, and did nothing else. I plan to tell everyone that Voldemort is back in public next time. What do you think?" After summarizing his conversation with Fudge, Dumbledore turned and asked Tryon, "I think we are just students. It's okay. We need every strength when facing Voldemort, and you might be able to provide some places we can't think of from the Muggle perspective." Dumbledore comforted. "So Imho, Professor." "That would only make the situation worse." Ryan originally thought Dumbledore would be angry after saying this. After all, this was against Dumbledore's plan. As a result, Dumbledore looked at Ryan with interest rather than anger. "Very good. Talk about your reasons." Principal Dumbledore looked at Ryan with an encouraging look. "On the one hand, as far as I know, Minister Fudge has been in that position for more than 10 years. As the highest official of the Ministry of Magic, he naturally does not want anyone to point fingers at him, including you. On the other hand, the support of the Ministry of Magic, most of them are pure-blood families, and these people are related to the mysterious people. In this case, they will also try their best to block the news of the mysterious person's return until the person decides to appear. So the principal's plan will be used by them except for them to induce the disgust of the people who suffered heavy losses during the last war. It is indeed the case, if the Fudge problem alone is easy to deal with. But the problem is that ordinary people in the wizarding world now sincerely do not want to admit this matter, so they are more inclined to all the Fudge they made up safe and sound. Falsehood. www.mplnovel.com. Hermione later added the story of how Churchill and Charles de Gaulle were marginalized before the Second World War, reminding the people that war is approaching. The essence of humanity is this: unwilling listen to bad news. Sometimes they are willing to accept some falsehoods that sound better, even if these falsehoods endlessly suffer. Yes, but that person was really resurrected is a huge disaster involving everyone. How could they choose to deceive themselves in this matter? Harry said in disbelief. The Second World War was also a disaster for the people at that time, but they still chose to deceive themselves. I don't think there is any difference between wizards and Muggs at this point. The history of the Muggle world has told us everything. You will know by reading some books on that aspect, Harry. Hermione said with a sigh. Then what do you think we should do now is the best? Professor Dumbledore asked seriously. In fact, when it comes to war, there is a great person in my compatriots who makes a lot of sense, that is to unite all the forces that can be united, make our friends more, and the enemies become less. Ryan is also very answered seriously. In this case, our core task is to win over most of the neutrals, because the backbone of both sides will not change much. At this point, Ryan saw Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall nodded. As for how to win over neutrals, the specific plan must be worked out on the premise of knowing the evidence in this kidnapping. Ryan shrugged as he looked at the professors who looked at him with hope. Because I don't know how much evidence they have, I really can't make the next plan.